Chapter 43:16. Linny couldn't help but groan inwardly. If he had known earlier, he would have acted more quickly and exchanged test cards with Huang Xiaotao before he queued up. In that case, whether Huang Xiaotao was chosen or not, Linny could make corresponding countermeasures. If Huang Xiaotao was chosen, coupled with Wang Xinyan, Linny could only grit his teeth and go to the East Continent. But now Linny had purposely hidden the attribute of his spirit root. What if he successfully tricked him and didn't pass, and Huang Xiaotao was chosen instead? What would he do then? But what if Linny didn't hide his spirit root's attribute and was chosen by Morningstar Academy, but Huang Xiaotao wasn't chosen? Wouldn't that be even worse? If Linny was left alone with his ability, he was not afraid of not being able to return to the North Island, but Huang Xiaotao could not. She was a woman, and it would be easy for her to get into trouble alone. Moreover, the strength of the early gold core stage was not very strong. How could she go back alone? He had to choose the lesser of two evils, so for the sake of safety, he decided to hide the attribute of his spirit root first. No matter what, he had to make sure that he could stay. The worst-case scenario was that Huang Xiaotao would be chosen. It wouldn't be too bad. Although he was arranged into the long queue early, there were actually many people in front of Linny. This wait lasted for a whole hour, and finally, after a long and torturous wait, it was Lin Yi's turn to take the test. Go over. The academy staff glanced at Lin Yi and motioned him to walk to the stone tablet, ready to test the spiritual root attribute. Lin Yi nodded slightly. Although he was a little nervous, he did not show it on his face. Not only did he not have the slightest intention of retreating. At first glance, he looked a little eager to try, almost the same as the other participants who were looking forward to joining the Morningstar Academy. The situation in front of him. Lin Yi knew that the more he flinched, the more suspicious he would be. This was especially so for the academy bigwigs on the stage. They were definitely perceptive people. If they gave themselves away even the slightest bit, they might be done for. Moreover, before deceiving others, one must first be able to deceive oneself. The more skilled one was, the more confident one would be in deceiving others without leaving any traces. This was a compulsory course for Lin Yi before he made his debut. Lin Yi secretly glanced at the big shots of the academy on the stage. Especially when he looked at the three mountain opening stage giants sitting in the middle, his current strength was far from theirs. Although it might be too exaggerated to say that he was killed in a second by someone's gaze, he was only at the beginning stage of the gold elixir realm after all. Not to mention fighting against these people, even if the other party just casually raised his hand, it would already be considered a favor to him. As for the outcome, of course, there was only one, which was to be killed in a second by these giants at the mountain opening stage. Facing this cruel reality, anyone would feel helpless, but Lin Yi could only choose to accept it and bury the grievance in his heart. He used it to constantly stimulate himself and become stronger. And at the same time, when Lin Yi looked at the three mountain opening stage giants, his eyes uncontrollably met with Wang Xinyan, who sat beside the divine nun of the East Sea. Lin? Wang Xinyan suddenly cried out involuntarily. Then she realized her current position and hurriedly covered her mouth. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and unconcealable ecstasy. Her position had an extremely wide field of vision. However, before this, Lin Yi was sitting in the crowd below. Even if she knew beforehand, it would be very difficult for her to notice it. Moreover, she did not know it all. But now Lin Yi stood out to test it. This allowed her to see it clearly. Compared to the joy that Lin Yi felt when he first saw her, the ecstasy in Wang Xinyan's heart at this moment was far greater than Lin Yi's. This goddess, who was publicly acknowledged as the third fairy of the Highland Sea, would never lose her composure in front of others. But at this moment she really could not control herself. Although Lin Yi had always been concerned about Wang Xinyan, there was more than one woman that he needed to be concerned about. But Wang Xinyan was different. In this more than a year, Lin Yi's figure would appear in front of her almost every day, but it was all in her dreams. In the past more than a year, she thought about Lin Yi every day. She thought about where Lin Yi had gone to, whether he was living well, and whether he had suffered any grievances. More than once, Wang Xinyan had even impulsively wanted to leave the Morningstar Academy. She did not mind traversing the 5 heavenly islands just to find Lin Yi. However, her master, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, stopped her every time. Without strength, it was impossible to move an inch on the heavenly islands, let alone search for someone. That was what the divine nun of the Eastern Sea had told her. As a result, Wang Xinyan began to work hard on her cultivation. She originally did not have any obsession with strength, but in the past year she became more diligent than anyone else. The sponge body was like a sponge that absorbed water. It was an excellent body that could increase strength quickly. Combined with the divine nun of the Eastern Sea's one-on-one guidance and cultivation resources, as well as Wang Xinyan's relentless cultivation, she was able to rise from the great perfection of the heavenly realm to early nascent soul in just a short year. As she created a legend in the world of cultivation, it also proved Wang Xinyan's devotion to Lin Yi. If she had not missed him so much, she would not have become who she was today. Yin, what's wrong? The divine nun of the Eastern Sea suddenly turned around and asked. Although Wang Xinyan was trying to hide it, and people who did not know her well might not be able to tell, she could not fool her master whom she saw every day. After all, Wang Xinyan's current unease was very different from how she usually behaved. And nothing? Wang Xinyan shook her head in a hurry. She came up with an excuse in a flash of inspiration. I think when I was cultivating earlier, my true qi went awry. I feel slightly uncomfortable. Really? The divine nun of the Eastern Sea did not doubt her at all. She knew about the sponge body. While cultivation progressed extremely quickly, it was indeed easy for problems to occur if one was not careful. She immediately placed her hand on Wang Xinyan's pulse and began to examine her closely without any hesitation. A while later, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea seemed to be rather doubtful, but she still let out a sigh of relief and comforted. It's all right. There are no signs of damage to your meridians. You should be fine. Yenera, you just need to rest for a while. Why don't you return to the inn first? There's nothing for you to do here anyway. Thank you, master, but I'd better stay here. After all, this is a major matter for our academy. It's not good for me to be absent alone. It's not like there's anything wrong with me anyway. I'll just rest here. Wang Xinyan shook her head in a hurry. She had finally met Lin Yi after so much difficulty, so how could she leave now? Chapter 43:17. Alright then. If you're still not feeling well, let me know as soon as possible. It's just a formality. It's fine as long as I'm here. It's fine if you want to go back. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea nodded and didn't say anything else. Okay. Wang Xinyan let out a sigh of relief. She was glad that her master had always doted on her and never suspected anything. Otherwise she would have been exposed just now. Although she had a good relationship with the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, and Wang Xinyan wouldn't intentionally hide anything from her, it was still a public event. If her relationship with Lin Yi was exposed, it wouldn't be a good thing for both Lin Yi and herself. Wang Xinyan was very clear about this. After dealing with it, Wang Xinyan sneaked a glance at Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi nod at her without batting an eyelid, she immediately understood what Lin Yi was thinking. The corner of her mouth curled into a beautiful arc and she smiled faintly. After giving Wang Xinyan a meaningful glance, Lin Yi didn't continue to look at her. Just like the other participants, he started to test for his spiritual roots. It was just like what Gu Wei had said, it didn't matter who it was, as long as they had a relationship with a goddess like Wang Xinyan, they wouldn't be envied or hated by anyone, even if it was just a simple conversation. On the contrary, in the eyes of the geniuses, this kind of person was an existence that had to be killed. His ending would definitely be worse than death. Putting aside his joy and other distracting thoughts, Lin Yi placed his palm on the stone tablet like everyone else, and at the same time, activated his mental cultivation method. This stone tablet used to test the spiritual root was specially brought out from the East Sea by the Morning Star Academy. Not only was it very professional, but it was also very sensitive. The formation set up inside was very complicated and exquisite. Anyone could immediately analyze the corresponding spiritual roots. Even the hidden and pseudo-spiritual roots, which were extremely difficult to detect with normal methods, couldn't escape the detection of the formation. No matter how weak his attributes were, he would never miss a single point. Just like the other participants, the results would show as soon as they put their hands on the stone. But when it came to Lin Yi, it took several breaths of time, and the stone didn't show any reaction at all. It gave people the feeling that something was wrong. It was as if this guy did not have any spiritual root attribute at all. Hey, are you injecting your true qi or not? The staff member at the side was immediately puzzled when he saw this scene. He was in charge of this work and had tested thousands of people, if not tens of thousands. He had never seen someone like Lin Yi who had no reaction at all. Yes, senior, you should also feel the true energy fluctuations on my body, Lin Yi said with a helpless expression. How did this happen? The staff member was speechless. He had indeed felt the true energy fluctuations from Lin Yi's body, but the stone tablet didn't react at all. Could it be that there was a problem with the detection array inside? That didn't seem possible, right? However, if the guy in front of him really didn't have a spirit root attribute, that was even more impossible. No matter what, he was an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm. If he did not have an outstanding spiritual root attribute, he would not even be able to cultivate, let alone become an expert in the gold core realm. The staff members of the academy looked at each other in dismay. At this moment, Lin Yi pretended to be helpless on the surface, but he was actually very confident in his heart. The reason why he was like this was actually because of his golden finger. To put it plainly, this situation was actually Lin Yi doing an experiment, and the first thing he needed to confirm was that, could his golden finger deceive the intricate detection stone tablet with its internal formation? Judging from the current situation, the gold finger was indeed effective. What he had to do next was to carefully control the gold finger and release one of the attributes of the spiritual root that it had hidden. This step was much more difficult than directly concealing everything because if he was not careful he might be completely exposed. Therefore Lin Yi needed to do an experiment, and he needed to warm up his hands in advance. Only when he was confident in his heart could he do it without any loopholes. The surrounding staff members of the academy did not know the knack of this, and they were all at a loss. If they had no other choice, they were even prepared to use the backup spiritual root attribute testing tool. However, the accuracy was far less than the stone tablet, and the people who participated in the test were very likely to have deviations. However, at this moment, a fiery red color suddenly appeared on the stone tablet, which was the sign of the fire spiritual root attribute. Success. Lin Yi suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The gold finger was indeed useful. It could even deceive such an extremely intricate detection stone tablet. It was really powerful and against the natural order. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be a big problem. The staff members of the academy immediately breathed a sigh of relief. In their opinion, this should be because there were too many people in the detection stone tablet, so it was inevitable that there would be a small problem, and the reaction was just a little slower. They did not even think that it was Lin Yi who had done something. The detection formation in the detection stone tablet was almost as complicated as a teleportation formation. Even a formation grandmaster who was extremely proficient in this field would have to study it for a long time before they could figure out the knack. If it was said that Lin Yi, an expert in the early golden elixir realm who participated in the selection, could do something under their noses, no one would believe it even if they were beaten to death. Fire spiritual root attribute, it seems that there is only one. Do you want to try again? The staff member of the academy paused and said. If it was someone else, he would have announced that they were directly eliminated. However, this time there seemed to be some problems with the detection stone tablet. He also felt that the results might be biased, so he planned to give Lin Yi a chance to retest. Forget it. There was only one type of spiritual root that was tested previously. I'd better give up. Lin Yi shook his head and sighed in disappointment. Alright, since you have no problems, it will save everyone's time. You can go now. The staff member of the academy nodded. A single spiritual root attribute was the most common. Even if the detection stone tablet's reaction was a little slow, since it could detect the result, it would not be wrong. Moreover, the strength of Lin Yi was only in the early golden elixir realm. He had barely reached the threshold. They were also too lazy to waste more time on such a candidate who had no future at first glance. Lin Yi nodded to the staff member of the academy. Then he walked out of the field in a daze with a bleak expression. In the eyes of others, he was a pitiful person who had failed the selection. Little did they know that in his heart at this moment he was actually very happy. Chapter 43:18. Suppressing his spiritual root to only the fire element, and at the same time, his own strength was also suppressed by Lin Yi, becoming the weakest early golden core stage. It was no wonder that the staff looked down on him. No matter who saw Lin Yi now, they wouldn't think that this person had anything to do with the Morningstar Academy, where all the geniuses gathered. From the beginning to the end, Wang Xinyan, who was on the stage, had clearly seen the entire process of Lin Yi's test. At this moment, when she saw Lin Yi leave the stage dejectedly, she was instantly shocked, speechless. She had thought that since Lin Yi came to participate in the selection, it must be for the sake of entering the Morningstar Academy. From then on, the two of them could be together. She had even been looking forward to the beautiful life in the academy, but she didn't expect that Lin Yi actually didn't pass. This situation was really unbelievable to Wang Xinyan. Others might not understand Lin Yi, but she knew everything about Lin Yi clearly. She clearly remembered that Lin Yi had a heaven-defying aptitude of the 5 elements and 7 elements. How did he suddenly become a single fire element spiritual root? Could it be that there was really a problem with the stone tablet? But if that was the case, Lin Yi wouldn't have said the last sentence. Since he said that, then he must have made plans in advance. He wanted to give up the selection without leaving a trace, that must be it. Although Wang Xinyan didn't know the specific reason why Lin Yi did this, she believed that since Lin Yi did this, then he must have his reasons. So even though she was shocked, she didn't show anything strange. After Lin Yi, Huang Xiaotao followed closely behind. The two met at the entrance and Huang Xiaotao looked at Lin Yi nervously. Although she didn't know as much as Wang Xinyan, she also felt that the scene just now was very strange. Lin Yi actually had a single fire element spiritual root, and Lin Yi actually failed. Was this possible? However, with so many academy staff watching them, Huang Xiaotao didn't dare to voice her doubts at this time, no matter how many doubts she had. She could only use her eyes to ask Lin Yi. From the beginning until now, Lin Yi had not told her his specific plans. He only told her to perform as usual and not to worry about anything else. But now Lin Yi was definitely eliminated, and she still did not know what the outcome would be. If he didn't get chosen like Lin Yi, then he would be in trouble. Although it was a little disappointing, it was a good thing for Huang Xiaotao because she could continue to be with Lin Yi that way. But what if she was chosen? According to Gu Wei, she couldn't even refuse if she was chosen. Could it be that he would be separated from Lin Yi and go to the Eastern continent alone to study at the Morning Star Academy? Be yourself. Don't worry. Lin Yi suddenly walked up and patted Huang Xiaotao's hand with a warm smile. Yes. Huang Xiaotao nodded, knowing that she couldn't let her imagination run wild at this time. After taking a deep breath, she walked towards the stone tablet under Lin Yi's gaze. Who was she? On the stage, Wang Xinyan couldn't help but stare blankly at this scene. She felt a little jealous in her heart. Could it be that this was Lin Yi's new confidant? At the very least, she was sure that this girl was a native of Heaven Island. After all, the temperament of people from the common world and people from Heaven Island was completely different. Heaven Island had an ancient charm through and through, while people from the common world, no matter how well they blended in, still carried the aura of modern society. This was something that couldn't be erased even if one wanted to. She unexpectedly saw the lover that she had been longing for, only to find that he had a confidant by his side. Although it was inevitable that her feelings were a little complicated, Wang Xinyan wasn't a jealous person. After thinking about it, she felt relieved. Lin Yi was so outstanding that it was normal for other women to fall in love with him. Moreover, she was used to sharing with the girls in the common world. Now, even if there was one more, she wouldn't find it hard to accept. The only thing that Wang Xinyan was really concerned about was how to avoid the eyes of outsiders and meet Lin Yi in private. At this moment, under Lin Yi's gaze, Huang Xiaotao slowly walked to the front of the testing stone tablet. After exhaling a mouthful of impure air, she placed her hand on the stone tablet, circulated the mental cultivation method, and inserted her true qi. The stone tablet reacted very quickly. It was the same as when Lin Yi was tested. A fiery red color appeared on the stone tablet. At first glance, it seemed to be a single attribute fire spirit root. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that Huang Xiaotao's fiery red color was fundamentally different from Lin Yi's. This was because her fiery red color was like a flame that was placed in the air, constantly swaying back and forth. Could this be? The academy staff couldn't help but look at each other in disbelief. At this moment, there was no need for them to announce it. When the elders on the stage saw this scene, their eyes suddenly lit up. Even the dean Ling Yuanqing and the vice dean Wei Hebei stood up at the same time. Although they had already recruited 2 people, whether it was Chu Muqing's tri-elemental spiritual root or Hedgehog Head's quadruple elemental spiritual root, it did not make the 2 mountain opening stage powerhouses show any expression of surprise. Even if Wei Hebei finally accepted Hedgehog Head, it was only after a moment of hesitation that he finally made the decision. Moreover, he was just an insignificant in-name disciple. However, when they saw Huang Xiaotao's spirit root attribute, even these 2 mountain opening stage powerhouses couldn't sit still. Fire and wind dual spirit root attribute. The academy staff was stunned for a long time before he couldn't conceal his pleasant surprise and shouted. Before he could finish his sentence, the entire audience was in an uproar. Even Chu Muqing and Hedgehog Head, who had already been accepted, had faces full of shock. Wind was a standard mutated spirit root attribute. This was already extremely rare, not to mention that Huang Xiaotao also had a fire spirit root attribute. This kind of aptitude could already be considered a genius among geniuses. Are you willing to join the Morning Star Academy and become my personal disciple? Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei seemed to have spoken at the same time. After they finished speaking, they could not help but look at each other and smile bitterly. The 2 mountain opening stage powerhouses had actually taken a liking to Huang Xiaotao at the same time. It couldn't be helped, people with such aptitude were really too rare. If they missed out on Huang Xiaotao, they might not be able to find another genius with both fire and wind spirit roots in their lifetime. If Huang Xiaotao only had a mutated spirit root attribute, even if she had another 5-element spirit root attribute, with Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei's cultivation and knowledge, they wouldn't have lost their composure like this. The key point was that her 2 spirit roots were not other but fire and wind. Chapter 43:19. The wind increased the power of the fire, and the fire assisted the might of the wind. The 2 of them were existences that could complement each other. Once they encountered the guidance of a great master, their power would be completely unlocked. The effects would not be as simple as 1 + 1. It was not something that regular mutated spiritual roots could compare to. Other people could not see the powerful prospects behind it, but how could Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, who were major figures of the mountain establishment stage, not even be able to see this? More importantly, during Huang Xiaodao's test just now, that tiny bit of chi fluctuation couldn't escape the senses of these mountain opening stage powerhouses. Moreover, she wasn't like Lin Yi, who could use his golden finger to hide his strength. Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei had clearly sensed that this person was actually a golden core stage expert with a perfect breakthrough. Fire and wind spiritual roots were already extremely rare and powerful talents, but Huang Xiaotao was actually a 1 in a million perfect gold core stage experts. With such a heaven-defying potential, no matter who saw it, they would be dumbfounded. Even the giants of the mountain opening stage like Ling Yuanqing were no exception. Once they took Huang Xiaotao under their wing, then with their knowledge and resources, it would be sufficient for them to create an extraordinary expert that was a pillar of the academy in the future. It was even to the extent that it wasn't impossible for Huang Xiaotao to be on equal footing with them one day. It would be strange if Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei did not lose their composure in the face of such a great temptation. In reality, although the other major figure of the mountain establishment stage, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, did not stand up like the 2 of them, her gaze towards Huang Xiaotao was also filled with splendor. I have been chosen? Huang Xiaotao was not as happy as everyone imagined her to be. Faced with the olive branch thrown out by the 2 major figures of the mountain establishment stage, she was rather at a loss. All she could do was turn around and look at Lin Yi, who had yet to leave. Everyone present could not help but feel speechless when they saw this. The hedgehog head had only been accepted by Wei Hebei as an insignificant disciple in name, yet he was already so cocky that he could not hold back his pride. In the end, this person was even better. 2 major figures of the mountain establishment stage had both promised her the position of a direct disciple, yet she still did not hurry up and agree? They really did not know what to say. At this moment, not only was everyone shocked, even Lin Yi couldn't react to Huang Xiaodao's pleading gaze. He really didn't expect Huang Xiaotao to have a wind attribute spiritual root. It was no wonder that Huang Xiaotao was so good at speed. It was also no wonder that her archery was so strong. Her archery had reached a truly profound level. In fact, it was all about the control of the wind. With Huang Xiaodao's talent, it was natural for her to control the wind like an extension of her arm. All along, especially after she had met Lin Yi, Huang Xiaotao hadn't displayed any powerful abilities. Part of it was because she was overshadowed by Lin Yi's various halos. More importantly, even Huang Xiaotao herself didn't know that she had such a powerful innate talent. They didn't even have the most basic knowledge. There was no need to talk about development. Huang Xiaotao relied entirely on her instincts. She went from the cultivator tribe to the 3 pavilions of the North Island step by step. Even the archery that she was most proficient in was only because she often moved about in the dense forest. It was purely a coincidence, and not because she knew that he had a wind attribute spiritual root. That was why he specially went to cultivate. If Huang Xiaodao's innate talent was said to be 100, then up until now she had at most developed 30. She wasn't even 30 yet. One day when she developed 100% of her innate talent, what kind of scene would that be? Even if Lin Yi imagined this, he couldn't help but feel a little shocked. It was true that in terms of innate talent, Huang Xiaotao couldn't compare to him, who had the 5 elements and 7 attributes. However, if he really cultivated her, she might not be any worse than Wang Xinyan, who had a spongy constitution. And Wang Xinyan was now an existence that was regarded as a treasure by the entire Morning Star Academy. Thinking of this, even Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Huang Xiaotao was already on his side. Since she was on his side, naturally the stronger she was, the better. Huang Xiaotao looked at Lin Yi from afar, waiting for Lin Yi to give her an answer. However, everyone present, especially Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, who were eager to take this genius under their wing, couldn't wait that long. That's right. From now on, you are a disciple of the Morning Star Academy. Furthermore, you are our direct disciple. Whether it's status or treatment, you are guaranteed to be of the highest level in the academy. However, as for who you want to take as your master, it's still up to you to decide, Ling Yuanqing said in an experienced and prudent manner. He was the same as the divine nun of the Eastern Sea. Normally, he didn't take in disciples, especially direct disciples. He had very few disciples under him. If Huang Xiaotao agreed, then after entering the academy, her status would definitely not be lower than Wang Xinyan's. However, Ling Yuanqing was the dean after all. No matter how much he liked Huang Xiaotao's powerful innate talent, he still had to consider the feelings of others. Ordinary academy instructors naturally didn't have the qualifications to fight with him for a disciple, but there was still Wei Hebei, who was also a pillar of the Morning Star Academy. Ling Yuanqing couldn't act arbitrarily. If you respect me, I'll respect you 10 times. With Ling Yuanqing's stance, Wei Hebei, who was beside him, also nodded his head repeatedly without any objections. But don't we still have to go through the third test? Huang Xiaotao said weakly. There's no need. With your innate talent, any other test would be unnecessary. Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, the two mountain opening stage powerhouses, shook their heads at the same time. She had dual fire and wind spiritual roots, as well as a perfect gold core stage expert that was 1 in 10,000. With this kind of innate talent, as long as she was nurtured a little, it was absolutely impossible for an expert of the same level to be a match for Huang Xiaotao. She was already destined to have limitless potential, so the so-called potential test in the third test was naturally unnecessary. Then I have to discuss it with my senior brother? With the sudden development of the situation, Huang Xiaotao suddenly didn't know what to do. She could only look at Lin Yi, who was at the side, for help. Sure, go ahead. After discussing it with your senior brother, you can directly come up to the stage. Ling Yuanqing didn't make things difficult for her and immediately nodded his head in agreement. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have given them any chance to choose. After discussing it with each other, they would directly make a decision. Why would they bother to ask the person's opinion? However, Huang Xiaotao was different. As the saying goes, strength determines status. In a place like the academy, especially in this kind of situation, potential could also determine status. They could ignore the thoughts of an ordinary disciple, but Huang Xiaotao was a super genius disciple who might be on equal footing with them in the future. How could they treat her like an ordinary disciple? As long as Huang Xiaotao didn't explicitly say that she wasn't willing to join, everything else could be accommodated. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Huang Xiaotao ran out of the stage in fear and trepidation. She ran to the front of Lin Yi and anxiously looked at Lin Yi, saying, "What should I do now?" Chapter 43:20. Xiaotao, you don't have to panic. To be chosen by these mountain opening stage giants and become their personal disciple, this is an exceptional opportunity that others can only dream of. Therefore, this is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. You should be happy. Lin Yi smiled and did not seem to be in a difficult position. But if I agree to them, won't I have to separate from you? Huang Xiaotao miserably grabbed onto Lin Yi's hand. In her eyes, the opportunity that others yearned for was far less important than being together with Lin Yi. If she could reject them, she would have just braced herself and directly rejected them. Unfortunately, this was impossible. Not to mention the terrifying consequences that would result if she rejected them in public, even Lin Yi would not agree to it. To be honest, if it was just entering Morning Star Academy to study, or becoming a disciple of a normal academy teacher, Lin Yi indeed didn't think much of it. This was because he was confident that even if Huang Xiaotao were to follow him, her growth wouldn't be any lower than his, and might even surpass his. However, it was different now. The people who wanted to accept Huang Xiaotao were mountain opening stage giants like Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei. Moreover, they were giving her the important status of personal disciple. This kind of condition was truly rare. Even if it was Lin Yi himself, he would be tempted, let alone Huang Xiaotao. With such an opportunity and Huang Xiaotao's powerful aptitude, it was extremely likely that she would become the next Wang Xinyan. How could Lin Yi stop her? It's fine. The separation now is for the sake of reuniting in the future. Xiaotao, after you go there, don't think too much about other things. Just focus on cultivating. Don't worry, I will come and find you, but not now. Lin Yi solemnly instructed. Oh. Huang Xiaotao had always been obedient to Lin Yi. Since Lin Yi had said so, even if she was reluctant, she would not go against Lin Yi's wishes. However, he would not go against Lin Yi's wishes. Still, he was a little worried. But if I leave just like this, won't you be alone? The environment here is so chaotic. Just as Lin Yi was worried about leaving Huang Xiaotao behind, Huang Xiaotao also had the same worry. When she was with Lin Yi, they could use the Frenzy 8 trigrams palm strike. Even if they were to face a nascent soul stage expert, they wouldn't feel the slightest bit guilty. However, if she left with the people from the Morningstar Academy and left Lin Yi alone, even if his strength was much stronger than that of an ordinary early-stage Golden Elixir Realm expert, it was still not enough to deal with this dangerous Jianghu. Don't worry, Xiaotao. Don't you believe in my strength? As long as I'm careful, protecting myself won't be a problem. Lin Yi smiled as he shook his head. After a pause, he changed the topic and said, "But little Tao, you have to be careful when you get to the Morningstar Academy. You heard what Gui said just now. It's a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. It's even more dangerous than the outside world. Little Tao, after you get there, try your best to stay out of it. You just need to cultivate in peace. Try your best not to get involved in the grudges and disputes of outsiders." "And I'll listen to you." Huang Xiaotao obediently nodded her head. She then asked, "Then who should I choose to be my master? Compared to Wei Hebei, I feel that the Dean Ling Yuanqing is better. Let's not talk about his strength, but he is the Dean. His status is higher than Wei Hebei, who is the Vice Dean. If you can become his personal disciple, others shouldn't dare to provoke you. It'll be safer." Lin Yi analyzed. This was a judgment made after comparing the hard conditions. As for Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, Lin Yi wasn't clear about their characters. Naturally, he couldn't make an evaluation. "Oh, then I understand." Huang Xiaotao nodded her head. She didn't have any opinions of her own, or it could be said that her opinions were based on what Lin Yi said. Since Lin Yi had said so, she would do as Lin Yi said. "Also, Xiaotao, after you go to the Morningstar Academy, try your best not to get involved in the grudges of outsiders. However, there's one person you can get close to," Lin Yi said after some thought. "Oh, could it be that you know someone in the Morningstar Academy?" Huang Xiaotao was flabbergasted. She remembered that Lin Yi was the same as her. He hadn't even heard of the Morningstar Academy before. Could it be that he knew someone? That's right. It's the female Vice Dean, the personal disciple of the Divine Nun of the East Ocean. She's also one of the 3 fairies of the High Lin Sea domain that Guwen mentioned, Wang Xinyan. Lin Yi nodded his head. Huang Xiaotao couldn't help but look at Wang Xinyan, who was on the stage. She realized that Wang Xinyan was looking at the two of them with a thoughtful gaze. She hurriedly lowered her head, but her heart was in turmoil. Don't be surprised. She's the same as me. We came up from the common world together. She's my... Lin Yi's face reddened as he said this. He rubbed his nose and said, "She's the same as you. We're all on the same side. As long as you reveal your identity to her, she'll definitely help you no matter what." Although it was a little boastful to say this, Lin Yi couldn't go to the Morningstar Academy himself. He could only arrange it this way. Fortunately, Wang Xinyan was also the gentle type. She had always been understanding. Lin Yi believed that because of him she would definitely treat Huang Xiaotao well. Oh. Only then did Huang Xiaotao come to her senses. No wonder Lin Yi had lost his composure the moment he laid eyes on her. There was a layer of relationship between the two of them. She originally thought that after going to the Morningstar Academy, she would be alone with no one to rely on. She didn't think that the third fairy, Wang Xinyan, was on the same side. Huang Xiaotao finally relaxed, but then she felt a little shy and worried. Wang Xinyan was Lin Yi's girlfriend. Moreover, the two of them already had that kind of relationship back in the common world. Then, as a latecomer, wouldn't it be like a concubine meeting a wife? Would the other party make things difficult for her? However, it was impossible for Huang Xiaotao to ask Lin Yi about this. She could only comfort herself silently. Previously, Shanghai Laner was also Lin Yi's girlfriend. She didn't have any bad feelings towards her, and instead she was very easy to get along with. This third fairy, Wang Xinyan, didn't seem to be a difficult person to get along with either. She probably wouldn't make things difficult for her. Wang Xinyan, who was on the stage, watched the entire discussion between Huang Xiaotao and Lin Yi. Previously it was only a guess, but now she could conclude that the two of them must have a very deep relationship. This genius with dual fire and wind spiritual roots, if nothing unexpected happened, should be her new sister. Master, disciple has been cultivating alone for such a long time. Is really too lonely. Master, can you let this junior sister cultivate with me? The two of us can be companions. Wang Xinyan thought for a moment and pretended that nothing had happened. She immediately suggested to the Divine Nun of the Eastern Sea. Chapter 43:21. Since they were new sisters and since they were on the same side, Wang Xinyan obviously could not just stand by and watch. Even if it was purely for the sake of Lin Yi, she had to take good care of Huang Xiaotao. The best way was to get Huang Xiaotao to become a disciple of the divine nun of the East Sea as well. That way the two of them would be fellow disciples and they could face anything together. Moreover, the divine nun of the East Sea only had one direct disciple. She would protect her no matter what. If Huang Xiaotao joined, she would probably not suffer any grievances. The divine nun of the East Sea was already rather tempted, but she was too embarrassed to argue with them since Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei had already spoken up. However, she immediately made up her mind after hearing what Wang Xinyan had said. After all, this was a dual spiritual root of fire and wind, and she was a perfect golden core cultivator. Her talent was no less than Wang Xinyan's, and what made it even rarer was that she was a female cultivator. To the divine nun of the East Sea who did not have many disciples, she was a disciple delivered to her doorstep by the heavens. Even if she had to throw away her dignity, she would fight for it. Oh, of course. It's rare for you to think like that, Yen'er. How can I disappoint you? The divine nun of the East Sea had always doted on Wang Xinyan. After patting her hand, she immediately stood up and said to Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, "You two men shouldn't fight with me over this disciple. There aren't a lot of female disciples in the first place, and there are even fewer with talent like her. Let her cultivate with me." About that, Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei looked at one another and could not help but feel rather embarrassed. The two of them were indeed rather tempted by Huang Xiaotao's great talent, and they had already made up their minds to take Huang Xiaotao in as a disciple. However, since the divine nun of the East Sea had spoken up, the two of them were rather embarrassed to keep fighting. No matter what, the divine nun of the East Sea was a woman after all. The two of them had to give in to her. Moreover, the divine nun of the East Sea had always only accepted female disciples. None of the male disciples with extraordinary talent she had encountered in the past had ever stepped forward to compete with her. As a matter of fact, even now, the vice principal of the academy, a mighty figure of the founding period, only had a single direct disciple, Wang Xinyan. Both of them should not compete with her, or they would seem far too petty. Among the three mountain opening stage powerhouses of the Morning Star Academy, putting aside the insignificant honorary disciples, just from the number of direct disciples. Although it had been a few years since Wei Hebei had accepted an apprentice, he was still the one with the most number of apprentices. It would be wrong of him to come out and fight for it at this time. As for Dean Ling Yuanqing, although he had very few direct disciples, he had more than the divine nun of the Eastern Sea's only child. Furthermore, not only was the divine nun of the Eastern Sea powerful, she was also one of the vice deans of the academy. To the Morning Star Academy she was indispensable. Now that she had spoken, Ling Yuanqing really couldn't go against her wishes. Alright then, since Donghai has spoken, she will be under your tutelage. Moreover, among the three of us, you are indeed the most suitable person to teach her. Ling Yuanqing made the final decision. Wei Hebei, who was beside him, didn't have any objections. After a while, after Huang Xiaotao and Lin Yi finished their discussion, they followed Ling Yuanqing's instructions in front of everyone. She directly walked onto the platform and arrived before the three mountain opening stage powerhouses. However, before she could say anything, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea directly said to her, "Miss, the two of them are men. Neither of them are suitable to be your master. I've already discussed it with them earlier. In the future you can become my direct disciple and cultivate with Yen'er. How about that?" Huang Xiaotao was taken aback. She could not help but turn to look at Lin Yi below the platform. Lin Yi had just told her to become the Dean Ling Yuanqing's disciple. Below the platform, Lin Yi saw this and hurriedly nodded at Huang Xiaotao. The reason why he had Huang Xiaotao choose Ling Yuanqing was because he felt he was better than Wei Hebei. However, since the divine nun of the Eastern Sea also wanted to take Huang Xiaotao as a disciple, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea was obviously the most suitable. That way, Huang Xiaotao would be able to advance and retreat together with Wang Xinyan as soon as she entered. Yes. Disciple Huang Xiaotao greets master. After receiving Lin Yi's signal, Huang Xiaotao bowed to the divine nun of the Eastern Sea in a hurry. Apart from her reluctance to part with Lin Yi, she finally felt a sliver of joy and excitement. After all, she was becoming the direct disciple of a mountain opening powerhouse. No one could remain completely unperturbed. Alright. Get up, disciple. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea hurriedly helped her up. Even with her cultivation, she struggled to hide her joy. Not only was she a genius with dual spiritual roots of fire and wind, but she was also a one-in-a-million perfect golden core cultivator. Most importantly, Huang Xiaotao's kindness made her feel like she was fated with her from the bottom of her heart. The higher one's cultivation, especially after reaching mountain opening, the clearer they would be able to see the insubstantial fate. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea had studied this very well. Taking a disciple depended on fate. Only when they were fated with each other would their fates be compatible and be happy. It was like that when she took in Wang Xinyan, and it was the same with Huang Xiaotao now. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea was warm and gentle. She held Huang Xiaotao's hand and pointed at Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei on the side. Come. From today onwards, the two of them are your senior uncles. Although the divine nun of the Eastern Sea did not share the same master as the two of them, they were both pillars of the Morning Star Academy now. They shared the same interests, so they could be regarded as fellow disciples. Disciple greets the two senior uncles. Huang Xiaotao immediately bowed to the two of them in understanding. There's no need to be so polite. Junior niece, please rise. Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei nodded with a smile, but they could not help but feel some pity inside. They could have been direct disciples, but they had become junior nieces instead. The feeling of missing out on a genius was like missing out on a lottery ticket in the secular world and winning a grand prize of 10 million. It was quite a pity. She's Wang Xinyan. She joined the academy a year earlier than you. She's your senior sister. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea introduced her to Huang Xiaotao. Xiaotao greets senior sister. This was the first time Huang Xiaotao had seen Wang Xinyan up close. Even as a woman, she could not help but be moved by her beauty and bearing. It was no wonder that she could become one of the three fairies of the Highland Sea region. It was also no wonder that she could be with Lin Yi in the secular world. Greetings, Junior Xiaotao. Wang Xinyan bowed before walking over and wrapping her arm around Huang Xiaotao's in a friendly manner. She turned around and asked the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, Master, I want to go out for some fresh air. I can take Junior Huang back to the inn to settle her in. All right. Go, but it's best if you don't leave Jinduan City, just in case something happens. The divine nun of the Eastern Sea nodded in agreement. She really did dote on Wang Xinyan. No matter what her disciple said, she would basically agree to it. Her words were filled with heartwarming concern. Chapter 43-22. Now that Jinduan City was completely under the control of the Morning Star Academy, it could be regarded as absolutely safe. Even in the surrounding sea regions, with so many peak experts of the Morning Star Academy present, no one would dare to do anything to them. However, beauty was a source of trouble. Wang Xinyan's beauty could still cause trouble. After all, the world never lacked blind idiots. Moreover, the divine nun of the East Sea could tell that although her new disciple, Huang Xiaotao, always wore a veil for some reason, she was an extremely rare beauty in terms of her figure and bearing. When she stood next to Wang Xinyan, they each had their own merits. If the two of them walked out together, the allure they would bring would not be something that regular men could resist. With the divine nun of the East Sea's permission, Wang Xinyan took Huang Xiaotao with her and bade farewell to her two senior uncles, Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei, before leaving in high spirits. What she wanted to do right now was obviously not to take Huang Xiaotao back to the inn. Instead, she was in a hurry to meet up with Lin Yi in private. With the tacit understanding between Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan, he obviously knew what she wanted to do. With a smile, he immediately left the square. There was no point in him staying here anyway, and he had already completed the test. No one would stop him from leaving. However, after leaving the square, Lin Yi had no idea where he should go. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were too big of a target. It was impossible for him to stay here and wait for him. However, as soon as he turned around, Lin Yi was immediately overjoyed. To his surprise, a new notice had been pasted on the notice board nearby. The ink had not even dried yet, so a group of people had gathered around to watch. Most of them were like Lin Yi, people who had come to participate in the selection but ended up being eliminated. They all pointed at the notice and discussed it. Can anyone tell me what's written there? I've studied for a few years after all, so why can't I recognize a single word? Someone said in confusion. The people in the surroundings were all confused as well. They had no idea what was going on. Let me take a look. A voice that Lin Yi was familiar with suddenly rang out. It was Gu Wei, the South Continent's Gu Wenxi. No one knew when this guy had snuck out, but after looking at it for a long time, he was as dumbfounded as everyone else. Damn, what kind of words are these? Why are they as crooked as tadpoles? It's not like it's vertical. Could it be that some bored guy wrote it to fool people? The onlookers nodded. Only Lin Yi, who was at the back, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was written in English. It would be strange if these people could understand it. Haha, it's been a year since we last met and this girl's gotten smarter. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This had to be Wang Xinyan's doing. No one could read English in this kind of place, so even if she posted it openly, she didn't have to worry about being seen through. Moreover, the location was eye-catching. It was killing two birds with one stone. Go straight ahead, turn left at the third alley, and there will be a tea house. See you there. Lin Yi silently memorized these words. He couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart, and quickly followed the directions. Very quickly he arrived at the third alley. The tea house was called Swallow Water Tea House. Compared to the hustle and bustle outside, there weren't many people in the tea house. At this time, those who rushed to Jinduan City were all here for the Morning Star Academy selection. At this time they were all gathered at Jinduan Square. Young hero, this way please. Would you like a table downstairs or a private room upstairs? Immediately, a tea house worker came forward and eagerly led the way for Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked left and right. He didn't see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao in the hall downstairs, so he said to the tea house worker, I'm looking for someone. They should have arrived first. Oh, I understand. Please follow me. The tea house worker seemed to have been specially instructed. He immediately nodded and brought Lin Yi to a private room upstairs. After the worker left, Lin Yi pushed open the door and entered. The silhouettes of two girls came into view. It was Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. Closing the door behind him, Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other silently. Neither of them said anything. It was as if time had stopped at this moment. After a long time, Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan walked towards each other at the same time. Lin Yi's lips curled into a beautiful smile. He opened his arms and suddenly pulled Wang Xinyan into his embrace, hugging her tightly. Huang Xiaotao stood to the side and watched. Unknowingly, her eyes had turned red. It wasn't envy or jealousy but happiness for the two of them. They were lovers, but after being teleported to Heavenly Island, they could only be apart from each other. Now they could finally hold each other in their arms again. This passionate hug was something they had been waiting for more than a year. She hadn't been in contact with Wang Xinyan for a long time, but she knew that Wang Xinyan was just like Laner. They were very easy to get along with and very kind girl. To a certain extent, Wang Xinyan's personality was more similar to hers, and they had more in common. In fact, it had only been a short while since they'd met each other, and Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao had already skipped the senior-junior relationship, going straight to calling each other sisters. After all, they were true sisters because of Lin Yi, and this level of relationship was even closer than if they were fellow disciples of the same sect. Under Huang Xiaotao's witness, Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan hugged each other tightly. It was as if they wanted to embed the other in their arms, unwilling to let go for a long time. The thousands of words they had to say after a year of separation were all in this one hug. This scene lasted for almost the time it took for a stick of incense to burn before the two reluctantly separated. There were tears in their eyes as they looked at each other and smiled. All right, don't just stand there. Sit down and have some tea. Huang Xiaotao said with a smile. All right. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other and smiled before taking their seats. Lin Yi couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer, so he skipped the greeting and turned to Wang Xinyan. Speaking of which, how did you get to the Eastern continent? You even became the disciple of the Eastern Sea's divine nun. I was really shocked when I saw you. Lil Sis Tao told me everything. She said you were almost drooling just now. Xinyan covered her mouth with a smile before explaining the whole story. I was actually teleported straight to the Eastern continent when we teleported up here. What? Lin Yi couldn't help but be startled. He thought that the Eastern continent was so transcendent, filled with so many masters that even the other sky-class islands didn't have the right to go there, let alone the people from the common world. Chapter 43-23. Logically speaking, people from the secular world shouldn't be sent to such a place at all. Newcomers who were only at the great completion of the heaven stage were sent to the East continent, a place that even many Golden Core experts yearned for but couldn't go to. This really made people speechless. Speaking of luck, to a certain extent they were indeed very lucky. However, this kind of good luck might not necessarily be a good thing for those who were directly involved in it. In terms of overall strength, the East continent is indeed much stronger than the other heaven stage islands, but there are still cultivator tribes at the bottom. Newcomers like us from the secular world can't enter the eyes of those sects and forces in the East continent at all. In the end, we can only be sent to the cultivator tribes, and many people even die on the way. Wang Xinyan sighed and explained to Lin Yi. If that's the case, the East continent is a dangerous place for newcomers like us in the mortal world. In comparison, people like me who were sent to the North Island are like living in a greenhouse. I'm considered lucky. Lin Yi shook his head and sighed as well. Huang Xiaotao didn't interrupt, but she agreed with what he said. As far as she knew, the North Island had the most peaceful atmosphere among the Heaven Stage Islands, and the degree of danger was also the lowest. As for the other islands, the East Continent itself was a mysterious place, and at the same time, it represented danger everywhere. As Wang Xinyan said, it was difficult for ordinary people to adapt here. The South Continent was the territory of the spirit beasts, and the surrounding sea area was a chaotic territory of human cultivators. They fought back and forth and blood flowed constantly. Although the West Island was a country of women, because the female cultivators were not strong enough, they often suffered from the invasion of some local powerful tribes in the surrounding sea area. They often confronted each other and the situation was tense. The Middle Island was the center of the Heaven Stage Islands. All kinds of powerful sects and forces were entrenched in one place. Even if the Island Lord Pavilion was in charge, it was still inevitable that there would be frictions and disputes. Behind the rise and fall of every sect was the shadow of a sword, and blood flowed like a river. It was just that the Island Lord Pavilion had deliberately blocked the news. So in the end, the atmosphere in the North Island was the safest. After all, everything in the North Island was decided by the three great pavilions, and no other forces could compete with them. And between the three pavilions, although there would be competition from time to time, in general they would advance and retreat together, and there would not be too much internal friction. In this way they could maintain a strong deterrent force, so that the various forces entrenched in the North Island would not dare to act rashly. For the weak rookies, the East Continent is indeed not a good place. Back then, if Master hadn't gone to visit other academies and happened to pass by, I wouldn't have been able to find him. I wouldn't have lived to this day if I'd found out that I was a sponge, let alone standing here with you. Xinyan said, still shaken. This can also be considered as the will of the heavens? Lin Yi smiled and comforted her. However, there was still some lingering fear in his heart. If it weren't for the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, it was hard to say what would have happened to Wang Xinyan in a place like the Eastern Continent. Yes, Master has always been very good to me. She treats me like her own daughter, doting on me no matter what. Lin Yi, do you want to find a chance to meet her? Xinyan suggested. In her heart, the divine nun of the East Sea was her family. If she could be described as half a daughter to the divine nun of the East Sea, then Lin Yi would be half a son-in-law. A son-in-law and a mother-in-law had to see each other at the end of the day. Moreover, with the divine nun of the East Sea's strength and status, she felt like Lin Yi should be able to help out no matter what happened. I do. However, the time is not right. Let's wait until I am a bit stronger, Lin Yi said with a smile. He had managed to pull the wool over everyone's eyes after so much difficulty. If he were to meet the divine nun of the East Sea, who knew if she would see through him or not? What if she became interested in him again, or if people like Ling Yuanqing and Wei Hebei found out? It would be troublesome. All right. Wang Xinyan could not help but be slightly taken aback. She was actually filled with hope that Lin Yi would go to Morningstar Academy with her using this rare opportunity. After all, Huang Xiaotao had already become a disciple of the divine nun of the Eastern Sea. She would never be at ease leaving Lin Yi alone in a place as chaotic as the Jinduan Sea realm. That's right. I still have a lot of unfinished business on the Northern Island, so I can't go to the East Continent for now. Once I've settled things here, I will go to the Morningstar Academy to find you too. Lin Yi nodded and promised. Then, you have to be careful when you're alone. As for me and Lil Sis Tao, no matter what happens, we'll always have Master protecting us. Usually we'll only stay in Morningstar Academy, don't worry. Xinyan didn't want him to leave, but since Lin Yi had said so, she wouldn't force him. Since Lin Yi had said that he would come to the East Continent to find the two of them, he would definitely come. It was just a little more time, and it was better than the previous year when they did not even know whether Lin Yi was alive or not, and they lived in fear. Well, you two take good care of yourselves. After returning to the academy, if you can find a way to write to me. Even if the letter can't reach the three pavilions of the North Island directly, you can still find a way to send the letter to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce. Xiaotao knows that as long as I tell a friend, no matter which branch of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce you send the letter to, you can finally send it to me, Lin Yi told the two girls. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yi was the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, even if Hong Zhong was previously ostracized by others in the Middle Island headquarters, he was still the real vice president. Even if he could not get involved in big matters that concerned his interests, he could still borrow the internal channels of the Hong Chamber of Commerce to send the letter. That was a piece of cake for him. He just needed to tell the people in the East Continent about it. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao nodded repeatedly. Even if Lin Yi did not mention this, they would definitely find a way to send a letter to Lin Yi in the faraway Morningstar Academy in the East Continent. Even if they did not have any connections, they could at most ask the Divine Nun of the East Sea to do it for them. After all, the Divine Nun of the East Sea spoiled Wang Xinyan so much that she would definitely agree to such a small matter. Also, after going to Morningstar Academy, Xianyan, help me take care of Xiao Tao. After all, it's her first time there and she doesn't know a lot of the rules. Even if she doesn't go out and cause trouble, she might still be targeted. I'll leave everything to you. No matter what, you two are sisters. Lin Yi's face reddened as he spoke, but he still shamelessly instructed. Chapter 43-24. Don't worry. I'll take good care of Lil Sis Xiao Tao for you even if you don't tell me. I promise that the next time you see her, she'll be chubby and fair without a single strand of hair missing. Wang Xinyan nodded and teased. Huang Xiaotao couldn't help but shrink her neck a little shyly when she heard that, but she felt warm inside. Ever since she left the cultivator tribe all those years ago, it had been a long time since someone cared for her. Chubby and fair. Are you going to raise Xiaotao like a pig? Lin Yi was speechless. Chem? Don't you like chubby and fair? I'll have to go on a diet then. Wang Xinyan glanced at Lin Yi flirtatiously. Even with Lin Yi's composure, he couldn't help but blush and his heart race. He almost couldn't control himself. After a year apart, this girl's charm had grown even more. There's no need for that. Sister Xinyan is so slim, even thinner than me. How can you be fat? Huang Xiaotao corrected him with a smile. Because her face had been disfigured and she spent most of her time out on training missions, she was already a skinnier beauty. But now that she stood next to Wang Xinyan, it was obvious that the latter was thinner. Over the past year, Wang Xinyan had been accepted as a disciple of the Divine Nun of the Eastern Sea and lived a good life, but she had always been worried about Lin Yi. She often worried about whether Lin Yi was still alive or not, and whether he was having a hard time. Naturally, she couldn't be plump. Moreover, every female cultivator was an expert at maintaining their youthful looks. As long as they didn't want to be fat, they would never be able to get fat. It's actually good for the two of you to be a little fatter. Lin Yi thought about it seriously and finally said, yes, there's meat. In your dreams. The two girls blushed and spat at Lin Yi. Wang Xinyan then changed the topic. Right, how are the others apart from me? The people she was referring to. Naturally, it wouldn't be those unrelated passers-by, but Lin Yi's confidants, her sisters. So far, we've only found Tianchan and Sydney. They're both on Middle Island. The whereabouts of the others are still unknown. Lin Yi sighed and said helplessly. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll be fine. Xinyan said softly. Huang Xiaotao on the other hand was puzzled. Did Lin Yi have a lot of women other than Laner and Wang Xinyan? Listening to the meaning of these words. Tianchan and Sydney, whom he had never met before, seemed to be his sisters. Although she was taken aback, Huang Xiaotao did not feel jealous at all. She had been brought up in a patriarchal education since young, so the idea that a wife should follow her husband's lead had already been deeply ingrained in her. Even though she was already an early Golden Core expert and a direct disciple of the Divine Nun of the East Sea, she did not find it inappropriate at all. She was just curious. I hope so. Lin Yi nodded. In his heart, the pursuit of strength had become much more urgent. No matter where he went, strength was king. Lin Yi's current strength was much stronger than when he first came to Heavenly Island. It was already tens or even hundreds of times stronger than before. However, if he wanted to rely on it to roam the world and find his lovers, and even go one step further to save the unconscious inheritor's girlfriends and pangolins, he would have to rely on it. But it was far from enough. They had been waiting for each other for more than a year, and now they were finally reunited again. But soon after, they had to face the separation of worlds apart. Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao really did not want to be separated. However, the time they spent together was always so short. The three of them clearly felt like they had only spoken a few words. Before they could properly savor the joy of reunion, the sky outside had already darkened. The rather empty streets were once again drowned out by the hustle and bustle of the crowd. This meant that the selection for the Morningstar Academy had come to an end. Of course, this was a grand gathering of over 10,000 people. Even if the selection process was extremely simple, with sufficient manpower and strict order to ensure the efficiency of the selection, it was impossible for the selection to be completed in a day. Even if they went on day and night, it would still take a few days at the very least. However, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao could not stay outside any longer. They had to return to the inn before the sky darkened, or the Divine Nun of the East Sea might cause some trouble if she did not see them. After all, one of them had a sponge body, while the other was a perfect golden core cultivator with dual elemental fire and wind spiritual roots. They were both extremely talented, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were the treasures of the entire Morningstar Academy. Once the two of them went missing, let alone the divine nun of the East Sea, even people like Lin Yuanqing would probably turn the entire city upside down. He was extremely reluctant to part with them, but Lin could only part with them in the end. He had always been calm, but before he left, he became rather garrulous. He gave them instructions again and again, which made the two of them laugh. As Lin Yi's confidants, they really did not know that Lin Yi had a side like that. As they laughed, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao's hearts warmed up. No matter how long they waited or missed him, it was all worth it to be able to make Lin Yi care about them so much. After parting at the Swallow Water Tea House, Lin Yi found a nearby inn to stay in. Although it was still overcrowded, there were still some empty rooms because many people were waiting in the square overnight for the selection. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have been forced to sleep on the streets now that the dock was sealed off. In the next few days, Lin Yi completely settled down in the inn. He basically did not leave at all, nor did he go to see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. Although Lin Yi really wanted to spend more time with Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao before they left Jinduan City, logic told him that in this situation, the less contact he had with the two of them, the better. Needless to say, Wang Xinyan was the center of attention no matter where she went. As for Huang Xiaotao, although she was not as eye-catching as Wang Xinyan, her dual affinity for fire and wind was widely known. Moreover, she had been accepted as the direct disciple of the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, a powerhouse of the mountain opening period. She was the new star of the academy. Moreover, during the selection, the relationship between Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao had been seen by everyone present. To be honest, if he continued to be seen with Huang Xiaotao, he was really afraid that some idiots would cause trouble for him, especially those from the Morningstar Academy. After all, the nascent soul stage guards that he had seen before were all temporary disciples of the academy. According to Gowei, none of these people were easy to deal with. Chapter 43-25. There was no guarantee that there would not be people forming cliques to make trouble for him because of Huang Xiaotao. Once things got out of hand, there would definitely be new problems. This was the last thing Lin Yi wanted to see right now. As a result, it was better to keep a low profile for now. If those people could not find him, there would naturally be no trouble. They could not make trouble for Huang Xiaotao anyway. With Wang Xinyan watching from the side, if they dared to pester Huang Xiaotao, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea would probably suppress them in a matter of minutes. Lin Yuanqing and the others would not have any objections. However, even if he hid in the inn, Lin Yi could not just sit around and do nothing. He was in a hurry to increase his strength. To him, the best way to increase his strength was to refine a golden core. Apart from treasures like the star ink milk and the infant ginseng, he also had the 2 golden core fruits of myriad crossing that he had obtained from the man in gray. The fruit wasn't very useful to Xinyan, who was at the initial phase of the nascent soul stage, but to Huang Xiaotao, who was also at the initial phase of the golden core stage, it was a great item that could quickly increase her strength. Lin Yi had planned to leave both fruits for Xiaotao, but Xinyan stopped him. A golden core is very rare for regular people, but it's basically something easily obtainable for our establishing mountain master. She's already prepared it, so Sister Xiaotao doesn't have to worry about it at all. It's unnecessary for you to give it to her. You might as well keep it for yourself. Those were Wang Xinyan's exact words. If it were not for the fact that she did not have any decent heavenly resources on her, she probably would have given them all to Lin Yi instead. She was the divine nun of the Eastern Sea's beloved disciple after all. With 2 golden core fruits of myriad crossing, Lin Yi was confident he could refine 2 golden cores if nothing went wrong. If he was lucky, he might even make more. However, he still had to gather other supplementary spiritual herbs before that. After all, the golden core fruit of myriad crossing was only the main material for refining a golden core. After going up to the Heaven Stage Island, after more than a year of deliberate cultivation, the storage of elixirs in the space of Lin Yi's jade pendant had already begun to take shape. Not only did it cover many common elixirs, but also some rare elixirs on the market. Now he planned to refine golden elixirs. Just relying on Lin Yi's own reserves, he would be able to meet 70 to 80% of his needs. As for the rest of the spiritual herbs, Lin Yi believed that they could be replenished at the spiritual herb stores and the Chamber of Commerce in Jinduan City. He just needed to make a trip outside. For safety's sake, Lin Yi put on the thousand silk mask before he went out and changed back to Wu Fu's appearance. This was a completely unfamiliar face in Jinduan City, so no one would be suspicious. As expected, Lin Yi's appearance as a martial artist was too common and too ordinary, especially in Jinduan City where experts gathered. This kind of ordinary martial artist who didn't look like a genius wouldn't catch the attention of the people around him. They didn't even bother to take another look at him, let alone pay attention to him. After successfully replenishing the remaining spiritual herbs, Lin Yi recuperated and immediately began to refine the golden elixirs. With his previous experience, Lin Yi was familiar with refining the golden elixirs again. Coupled with the automatic alchemy of the divine armament cauldron, accidents could be avoided to a great extent. This time was no exception. The entire refining process was under Lin Yi's control from beginning to end, and finally the best quality golden elixirs were successfully produced. However, what made Lin Yi slightly regretful was that there were only two. Although there were often surprises when refining the foundation establishment pill in the past, looking back, whether it was the two 10,000 crossing golden elixir fruits that Lin Yi found from the man in gray, or the auxiliary materials he bought later, the quality could only be regarded as average. In this case, it was already quite rare to be able to successfully produce two best quality golden elixirs. It was impossible to produce more than this. There was no such good thing in the world. Looking at the two freshly refined best quality golden elixirs in his hands, Lin Yi was a little excited. To be honest, because of Wang Xinyan and the stimulation of so many super experts in Morningstar Academy, his desire for strength was much stronger than ever. Moreover, now that Huang Xiaotao was gone, it meant that the strongest Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm strike could no longer be used. This was like suddenly breaking an arm. Even if Lin Yi had other powerful trump cards, he still couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable and even a little afraid. After all, in terms of strength, he was only in the early golden core stage. Whether it was the Zhenduan Sea or the Weiarc Sea, they were all places where dragons and snakes mingled. There were many nascent soul stage masters everywhere. Lin Yi's strength was simply not enough. If he really encountered trouble, it would even be a problem for him to protect himself. Now that the best quality golden elixir was ready, he didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. Holding his breath and concentrating, he swallowed the best quality golden elixir. Lin Yi suddenly felt as if the meridians in his body had been ignited in an instant. It began to burn violently and the pain was unbearable. Pain leads to impassibility. This saying was also applicable on the path of cultivation. Once the meridians in the body were in pain, it meant that they were undergoing a transformation. Perhaps they were growing stronger or perhaps they were going berserk. It was just a matter of degree. Lin Yi had already used the golden elixir once before, but at that time it was to break through to the golden core stage. Moreover, it was a perfect breakthrough with the help of the starring stone. That kind of earth-shattering change was completely different from this kind of simple leveling up. At that time, the thing that brought the greatest pain to Lin Yi was the starring stone, but now it was simply the burning of his meridians. However, when he really experienced it, the feeling now was not much better than that time. However, Lin Yi could only silently clench his teeth and endure it. He didn't dare to be discouraged because at this moment, the true qi in his meridians had skyrocketed. Once he was discouraged, it would easily lead to serious consequences. Once it was out of control, it was not impossible for it to evolve into berserk. This kind of burning went on for a full 4 hours. Even with Lin Yi's endurance, he began to feel a little overwhelmed. The burning pain in his meridians finally began to slowly weaken. When it completely returned to normal, Lin Yi suddenly discovered that his meridians were actually a lot stronger than before, and the degree of the true qi was also more abundant than before. This realm is... Feeling the new and powerful strength in his body, Lin Yi was immediately stunned. He cried out in disbelief, "Middle golden core stage." He had clearly only used one golden elixir. Even if it was of the best quality, Lin Yi originally did not think that he could break through to a higher realm. In his original expectations, if he could reach the peak of the early golden core stage, it would be considered a great success. Chapter 43-26. But now he didn't expect to advance 2 levels in a row, from the early stage of the gold core realm to the middle stage of the gold core realm. Lin Yi was stunned for a long time and finally let out a long breath. He finally understood the cause and effect. He muttered to himself, "No wonder it hurt for so long just now, and no wonder I was stuck at the threshold of the early stage of the gold core realm and couldn't break through." It turns out to be so. As the strongest master of the gold core realm who had a perfect breakthrough, in theory at least in the entire gold core realm, he could advance quickly with irresistible force, but Lin Yi had been stuck at the threshold of the early stage of the Gold Core realm. In fact, Lin Yi had accumulated a lot of combat experience during this period. From the inner core competition of the 3 pavilions in the North Island to the various encounters after he left the South Island, he had faced either masters of the Gold Core realm or masters of the Nascent Soul realm, and each of them was stronger than the other. Logically speaking, even if it was a bottleneck, it should have been loosened long ago, but there was no sign of it for so long. As a result, after taking the Supreme Grade Gold Core realm, he directly broke through to the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, which was really a joke of fate. Lin Yi thought to himself that it was probably because he had reached the point long ago, but he lacked an opportunity to break through. Now, because he took the Supreme Grade Gold Core realm, this opportunity was just triggered. Coupled with the effect of the Gold Core realm itself, it was reasonable for him to advance 2 levels in a row. In the face of this unexpected joy, Lin Yi, who was still a little depressed, suddenly cheered up. Masters of the Gold Core realm with a perfect Gold Core realm were superior to ordinary masters of the Gold Core realm. With his current strength of the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, even if he directly faced an ordinary master of the Gold Core realm, he would absolutely suppress him in all aspects. And if he used his strongest trump card, Lin Yi had a strong feeling that even if he was alone, he could defeat a master of the Nascent Soul realm. Feeling the surging new power in his body, Lin Yi looked at the remaining Supreme Grade Gold Core realm and was a little tempted. He believed that with his potential as a master of the Gold Core realm, he should be able to advance one more level. He might be able to level up if he continued, but he suppressed the tempting thought in the end. Although it was gratifying to advance a step further, the path of cultivation paid particular attention to moderation. If one blindly sought speed, going too far would be as bad as falling short. No matter how powerful and harmless the effects of the pills were, they were only supplementary items in the end. Only the results of cultivation that could be achieved through constant dripping would be the true foundation. Although he successfully broke through to the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, it was better to stay in the inn and stabilize his strength. Instead, he decided to stay in the inn and continue his closed-door training. He'd already told Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao that instead of taking the risk to look for them, he'd rather stay in the inn and stabilize his strength. When he became stronger in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a chance to meet them. For a couple of days, Lin Yi didn't step out of the house until he felt that the pure energy in his body had returned to normal, and his strength had completely stabilized. Lin Yi finally walked out of his room for the first time, planning to go out for some fresh air. This time he 1000 realm and core realm. Lin 1000. Stage of the stage of realm. Lin realm. Stage. Soul. Realm. Lin stage. 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 Core. Translator. Transin editor. Transin the inn that Lin Yi stayed in was not a simple inn. It was actually quite a big restaurant. It was quite famous in the whole of Jinduan City. The first and second floors were places to eat and drink. Only the third floor was used as a rest area. Lin Yi ordered a few signature dishes and sat down by the window. He looked at the scenery outside the window while eating the signature dishes. It was a rare opportunity for him to relax. It had to be said that the taste of the restaurant's signature dishes was really good. It was famous for a variety of seafood. It was a local dish of the Zhenduan Sea in the southern continent. It was different from anything that Lin Yi had eaten before. It was spicy and fragrant. Lin Yi sat alone. At a table not far behind him, there were 2 men drinking with each other. Lin Yi inadvertently glanced at them and felt that they looked familiar. However, he could not remember where he had seen them before. Big brother, the people from Morningstar Academy should have already left. Why is the pier still under martial law, causing our cargo to be stuck here? We've been holding it for almost a month now, it's really fucked up. One of the green-robed men cursed. I'm also puzzled about this. They've already left. Why is there still a martial law? But I reckon that it should be open again in 2 days, the other man in black said as he drank. Hearing the familiar voices of the two, Lin Yi's heart jumped. He secretly examined the strength of the two. They were both at the peak of the late Gold Core stage. There was no mistake. These two were the pirates that had robbed the goods. There were 4 experts at the peak of the late Gold Core stage who had robbed the goods, and the 2 behind him were 2 of them. Although Lin Yi did not have a deep impression of this group of pirates because he had not fought with them, but it had not been a long time. Lin Yi could not recognize them even though he was sitting so close to them. Moreover, the meaning of the two's words was that the goods that had been robbed had not been disposed of. But Lin Yi clearly remembered that after this group of pirates left them at the pier, they should have left Zhenduan City. Why did they come back now? With Lin Yi's current strength, not to mention 2 experts at the peak of the late gold core stage, even if all 4 of them came together, he would not be a problem. At this moment he did not have the slightest bit of fear. He simply continued to eat quietly while listening to the conversation of the 2. Damn it. Although it was very smooth this time, and those 4 cowards were tactful and did not resist at all. But after that we were really unlucky. We had already set sail, but we were forced back by the storm. Just when the weather was slightly better, the people from Morningstar Academy came and sealed the pier. The man in green was speechless as he drank his wine. These words answered Lin Yi's doubts. It turned out that this group of people had been forced back by the storm. No wonder they were still stuck here even though they had already left. Alright, second brother, you don't have to complain anymore. You've said this dozens of times already. I've heard it so many times that my ears have grown calluses. This is called the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks, do you understand? Wait until we give this batch of goods to shopkeeper Wei. Think about the reward we agreed on before. TSK, let alone a month, even if we were delayed for half a year, it would still be worth it. The man in black laughed as he comforted him. Shopkeeper Wei? Could it be Wei Xiaodong from the Hong Merchant Association? When Lin Yi heard this he suddenly quivered. But after thinking about it carefully he felt that it was not possible. This goods was entrusted to the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency by Wei Xiaodong himself. There was no reason for him to find someone to rob his goods. It should just be that they had the same surname. Chapter 43:27. That's true. Once this deal is done, the 4 of us will be able to enjoy ourselves for a few years. The man in green was elated and sighed. Say, us brothers have worked so hard and risked our lives to do this kind of shady business, but we still can't earn as much as Manager Wei. That's right, it's his own goods. Not only did he take it back, he could also demand a sky-high compensation from the escort agency. Moreover, no one could find fault with him and they would even have to bow and apologize to him. Doing a business that costs nothing, yet he's so favored. I'm starting to wonder if he's in the same line of work as us. The man in black chuckled. Although they were surrounded by outsiders who were eating and drinking, he still dared to say such words on such an occasion. Moreover, the people around him did not show any strange expressions when they heard him. It was clear that the chaotic situation in the Jinduan Sea was no longer strange, and they were already used to such things. However, when Lin Yi heard this he was completely shocked. He did not expect the mastermind to be Wei Xiaodong himself. Before this, Lin Yi had always found it strange. The route they took to escort the goods was very well hidden, and outsiders could not possibly know about it, especially with the thick sea fog. If they had not known about the route beforehand, the possibility of these pirates discovering the cargo ship in the thick sea fog was almost zero. However, the truth was that these pirates had been waiting for the right opportunity. They did not even hesitate to chase after them. When Lin Yi and the others delivered the goods to their doorstep, they immediately rushed forward to take it. The process could only be described with one word: clean and tidy. Lin Yi did not expect this to be the cause of the problem. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, it was all part of the Hong Consortium's plan. Swallowing their own goods and then looking for compensation from the escort agency. This could no longer be considered an ordinary mole. This was Wei Xiaodong digging a pit and teasing the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to jump into it. After the deed was done, he could still claim righteousness and ask for an apology. Moreover, he had also buried Lin Yi and the others in the pit. Lin Yi had never imagined that Wei Xiaodong, the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's branch in the Weiark territorial waters, would be such a despicable and shameless person. This was an old friend that Hong Zhong had solemnly introduced to him. With a precedent like Nakajima Kai Zhongyang, Lin Yi thought that Hong Zhong's friends would all be like this, but he didn't expect Wei Xiaodong's character to be so corrupted. It could be seen that even someone as experienced and prudent as Hong Zhong would sometimes make a mistake. But thinking back, when he introduced Wei Xiaodong to Lin Yi, Hong Zhong also said that although he and Wei Xiaodong were old friends, they had not seen each other for a long time. People would always change. After a long time, Wei Xiaodong would be blinded by benefits. It wasn't a big deal. Since that was the case, there was no need for Lin Yi to give this guy any face. According to the original plan, he was going to wait for the dock to lift the ban and then directly return to the Weiark Sea. But now he was going to change his mind. If he hadn't met these 2 pirates, Lin Yi planned to go out for a walk after eating. After all, it was rare to come to Jinduan City. But now he had given up this idea. He was going to keep a close eye on the 2 pirates behind him. Lin Yi ate silently in front of him. After waiting for the 2 people behind him to take further action, after half an hour, the 2 finally had their fill. Second brother, I will go back to my room first. You go to the dock and replace third brother and fourth brother. Let them come out to relax, have a drink and have a meal so that they don't complain behind my back." After the man in black instructed, he got up and went upstairs. Linny couldn't help but be taken aback. Looking at this posture, it seemed that this person was staying in the same inn as him. No wonder he met him here. The old saying was right, enemies often cross each other's path. Although the man in black was a little reluctant, he still did as he was told and got up to go out. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth lifted slightly. He quietly locked the man in black with his divine sense and then got up to go out. The other party was a master at the peak of the late gold core stage, but in front of Lin Yi, who was at the middle gold core stage, he was not an ant. He was really not an opponent. He was just a weak existence that could be killed in seconds. Even if he was locked by Lin Yi's divine sense, the man in black did not notice it at all from beginning to end. He came all the way to the dock and flipped over into a cargo ship. Lin Yi took a closer look. This cargo ship was extremely familiar. It was indeed the one he used to deliver the goods, but the unique logo of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency was erased from the bow. If it was just an ordinary cargo ship, it could be stored in the dock next to the dock during the period of martial law. There was no need to specially leave people to guard here. However, these guys had a guilty conscience. It was a cargo ship that was robbed halfway and they were counting on the goods on board to make a big profit. Naturally, they would not be at ease. Lin Yi waited at a distance outside the dock. Anyway, with his divine sense locked, he was not afraid that these guys would escape. After a while, two men came down from the cargo ship. They were the other two pirates who robbed the goods together. They were the third and fourth brother that the man in black had mentioned. The two walked out of the dock talking and laughing. It was obvious that they were looking for a place to relax. In other words, on the cargo ship at this moment, only the man in black was left. Seeing this, Lin Yi smiled slightly and walked to the front of the cargo ship. With a little force from his feet, he jumped onto the deck. Immediately, Lin Yi walked straight to the cabin. Relying on his divine sense, he knew that the man in black was inside. "Why are you back again? Didn't I tell you to go eat?" Since Lin Yi did not hide at all, his footsteps were clearly heard by the man in black, but he thought that it was the third or fourth brother who turned around and came back. At this moment, the man in black was lying on a wooden bed. He crossed his legs and drank a little wine leisurely. He was enjoying himself and closed his eyes to rest. "No need, I have already eaten and I ate with you." Lin Yi's mouth raised a playful smile. "Who?" The man in black was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Suddenly he was shocked. His aura of the peak of the late stage of gold core was revealed. He pointed at Lin Yi and said, "Who are you? How dare you come on my ship so casually? Don't you want your life? Are you sure this ship is yours?" Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. He leaned against the door calmly and said, "But as far as I know, this ship doesn't seem to be yours? This is the Equal Heaven Escort Agency, right? Or did you join the escort agency?" Chapter 43:28. How did you know? The man in green blurted out and quickly covered his mouth. He looked at Lin Yi from head to toe and said, "Who are you? Tell me your name if you have the guts. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you." If it was any other time, the man in green would have already killed someone based on his violent nature. However, he didn't dare to act rashly. After all, the pier was under martial law and he didn't dare to cause too much of a commotion. After all, this was a stolen ship. Once it was exposed, it would be troublesome. Secondly, he hadn't figured out Lin Yi's actual strength yet. He couldn't see through Lin Yi's strength. Looking at this person's posture, he didn't come with good intentions. Moreover, his aura was condensed. If he was an expert in the Golden Core realm, or even the original infant stage, then he would suffer today. Hehe, people of high status really have short memories. If you can't remember yourself, then forget it. I don't have the habit of telling the dead my name. Lin Yi didn't mind and smiled faintly. What? The man in green suddenly became angry. He looked at Lin Yi's appearance carefully and felt that he looked familiar. After a while, he suddenly shivered and pointed at Lin Yi and shouted, "You are the escort. Your memory is not bad. That's good. Since you remember yourself, at least you won't die with grievances. It's a good thing for you." Lin Yi was still leaning at the door and smiled indifferently. Die with grievances? Ah. After the man in green saw Lin Yi's background clearly, he was no longer as nervous as before. He laughed fearlessly and said, "You are just an ant in the early Golden Core realm, but your tone is not small at all. Hehe, before, the four of you didn't even dare to fart in front of me. Now that you are the only one left, you actually dare to run in front of me and act tough. Are you tired of living? Is this very funny? The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Of course it's funny. I've been out here for so many years, but I've never seen an idiot like you. I spared your dog life before, but now you actually dare to run back to the ship. It's rare to see someone so eager to die. The green-robed man's face was filled with disdain as he said, I say, brat, the Equal Heaven Escort Agency only gives you some spirit jades. The compensation is pitifully small. Do you really have to risk your life for them? Or do you think it's very heroic of you to snatch back the darts that we stole? You're thinking too much. There's a ready-made boat right here and I'm just hitching a ride. I'm doing what I've been asked to do. Who told you guys to be so unlucky to run into me again? Lin Yi said faintly, his expression unchanged. Who are you calling unlucky? A jet on early stage trash dares to boast shamelessly in front of me. Fine, I have nothing to do anyway. Today I'll teach you how the word death should be written. Finished speaking, the green-clothed man suddenly erupted and pounced straight at Lin Yi. You're a stolen boat. Aren't you afraid of causing a commotion and being exposed? The corners of Lin Yi's mouth curled into a smile. He still crossed his arms and did not make a move. So this is what you're relying on. Do you think I'm afraid of people finding out? That I don't dare to attack you? The green-clothed man did not stop moving as he laughed. You're really an incurable idiot. Where do you think this is, brat? This is the chaotic Xinduanxi. Murder and arson can be seen everywhere. No one will care. Even if you tell them I'm a pirate, do you think anyone will help you? You're so stupid. So you're saying that even if someone dies now, no one will care? Lin Yi said calmly as he looked at the green-clothed man who was instantly above him. Of course. Even if I dismember your corpse in front of everyone, no one will care. The green-clothed man laughed ferociously as he suddenly slashed down. His scimitar was much shorter than an ordinary scimitar. Usually it was hidden behind his back. It was difficult for outsiders to see it. Once he attacked, he would often be caught off guard. However, Lin Yi was not surprised at all. He just tilted his head and turned his toes slightly. He avoided the extremely sudden first strike. The blade of the scimitar brushed past his cheek. It was extremely thrilling. Thank you for your reminder. It seems that I don't have to worry about attacking you. Lin Yi smiled lightly. If you have some strength. The green-clothed man was shocked when his determined strike was easily avoided. Moreover, the aura that Lin Yi displayed just now was not at the early stage of the Gold Core realm. It was at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. There was a gap of 2 whole levels between their strengths. Before he finished speaking, Lin Yi took advantage of the flaw in the opponent's strike and struck him with his palm. The 28 style of Frenzy 8 trigrams palm. Idiot is really an idiot. I just showed you a flaw. You fell for it. So what if you are at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm? You are just an ant waiting for me to slaughter. The green-clothed man's scimitar suddenly split into 2 and met with Lin Yi's Frenzy 8 trigrams palm. His scimitar was a combination of 2 scimitars. This was another unexpected move. If the opponent was not careful, he would suffer a big loss. Moreover, the gap between their strengths was obvious. In the eyes of the green-clothed man, there was no suspense at all in this kind of head-on confrontation. There was only one final result. That was Lin Yi's palm and body would be cut off by him. However, the next moment, the green-clothed man's ferocious smile instantly froze. Before his scimitars could hit Lin Yi, his whole body had been covered by the fiery genuine chi of the 28 style of Frenzy 8 trigrams palm. Bang! The green-clothed man's chest suddenly had a big hole. He flew out and smashed on the deck not far away. Then his eyes lost their spirit. He lay on the ground powerlessly and became a complete corpse. He never thought that he, a master at the peak of the late stage of the Gold Core realm, was not the opponent of a mere middle stage of the Gold Core realm in a head-on confrontation. He really died with regrets. From start to finish, there was only one exchange of moves, and it was a clean and efficient killing blow. The people outside didn't even notice the commotion. Of course, even if someone noticed it, they wouldn't come over to meddle in other people's business, just as the azure-clothed man had said. In the Xinduanxi region, the price of meddling in other people's business was often the lives of others. Even the person would pay the price, so no one would do such a stupid thing. Lin Yi glanced at the green-clothed man's unrecognizable corpse. He did not have the slightest intention of covering it up. He just let it lie on the ground. He calmly found a corner in the cabin to hide from the wind and sat down. After all, he was an assassin. The corpse would not bring any discomfort to Lin Yi. He had been accustomed to it before he started his career. Chapter 43:29. Of course, the body of the man in black was left here. When the others came back, they would definitely be alerted. However, Linny did not intend to let these pirates go. Even if the three of them at the peak of the late Gold Core realm attacked together, they would not pose a threat to Linny now. If these people were sensible, Linny could consider sparing their lives. If they were not sensible, then he could only reluctantly send them to follow in the footsteps of the man in black. Anyway, they were not good people. Killing these evil pirates was a good thing for the people. Linny sat in the cabin with his eyes closed. He waited for a whole day until noon the next day. Suddenly there was a commotion outside. It was not the return of the pirates, but the movement outside the dock. Damn it, after so long the ban is finally lifted and we can go to sea. During this period of time, we have been cheated badly. At least we have lost a lot of 10,000 spiritual jades. Not far away, someone was glad and complained at the same time. Forget it. That passenger ship of yours is small and run down. It can only carry a few people at a time. If there's a storm, it might capsize at any time. You've even lost tens of thousands of spirit jades. It's better if you become a pirate and go rob. The bystanders chuckled disapprovingly. Hey, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I'm going to sea now. In a few days I will bring back some good things to let you open your eyes. Then you will know how much I have earned. This person did not talk nonsense. He immediately called the crew and was ready to go to sea. There was a similar noise around them. They were all ready to set sail immediately and quickly earn back all the spiritual jades they had lost during this period of time. It seemed that the ban was really lifted. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat, but his feet didn't move. He continued to sit in the cabin as if he was a god. In this way he believed that the pirates should be back soon. Sure enough, less than an hour later, the man in black, who was the leader of the pirates, walked in from the entrance of the dock with a livid face. His face was ashen as he walked in from the entrance of the pier. Behind him were two other people with disdainful expressions. The third and the fourth. Useless things. At a time like this, he still went to a brothel to play with women and even quarreled with others. Could it be that he couldn't stand it for 2 days? Damn it, if I hadn't seen you two drunk like mud, you would have been chopped up and fed to the dogs. The black-clothed man cursed angrily. But boss, didn't you go there yourself? Otherwise, how could he have found us? OL3 and OL4 looked at each other and replied weakly. The two of them were drenched in cold water and looked like two drowned chickens. Even so, it was still difficult to conceal the strong smell of alcohol. Damn it, you still dare to talk back. The black-clothed man's face turned red, and then he flew into a rage out of humiliation and said, If I didn't look for you two bastards, where would I go at this time? Do you think I can't distinguish what's important and what's not? I went to get you two back because the ban on the docks has been lifted. Now is the time to get down to business, understand? Don't give me any more trouble. The news of the docks being lifted, didn't boss also hear it from someone in the brothel? OL3 and OL4 looked at each other and didn't dare to speak again. They just lowered their heads and didn't say a word. The three of them walked all the way over. They jumped onto the ship and landed on the deck outside. Then they heard the black-clothed man shout, Second brother, come out to work. Finally, the ban has been lifted. We have to set off quickly. Otherwise, Shopkeeper Wei will be waiting anxiously. Maybe that old guy will go back on his words. After saying that, the black-clothed man went straight to the steering room, while OL3 and OL4 were responsible for lowering the sail. From beginning to end, no one came to the cabin to take a look. They didn't even know that their second brother was already a corpse. With such a poor vigilance, how could they have the nerve to be pirates? Linny didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, since the other party didn't take the initiative to come in, he was too lazy to go out. So he continued to wait in the cabin. After a while, the cargo ship set sail. Linny estimated that they had already left the dock. Then he heard the black-clothed man's voice again. What's going on? Did second brother drink too much and laze around inside? A bunch of drunkards. OL3 and OL4, you two go and call him out. Later, when we see Shopkeeper Wei, we have to figure out how to extort more profit from this old man. We have to think about this matter carefully. All right. OL3 and OL4 responded and walked toward the cabin. However, as soon as they opened the cabin door and saw the scene in front of them, both of them were stunned at the same time. Cold sweat involuntarily began to flow down. The black-clothed man waited in the steering room. Seeing that there was no movement for a long time, he couldn't help but scold again. Why haven't you come out yet? Why are you dilly-dallying? What can you do like this? Boss has an accident. Something big has happened. OL3 and OL4 suddenly staggered over and hid in the steering room as if they were running for their lives. They were gasping for breath. You're the one who has an accident. Motherfucker, you still dare to curse me? The black-clothed man scolded in confusion. No, no. Second brother has been killed. He died a terrible death. OL3 and OL4 were flustered and stuttered as they explained. What? How is that possible? The black-clothed man was shocked and obviously didn't believe it. No matter what, second brother was an expert at the peak of the late stage of Gold Core realm. Moreover, he liked to hide his trump card. It was always him who plotted against others. In this Zhenduan city, there were no irreconcilable enemies. How could he be killed so easily? No. I'm not lying to you. He's really dead. He's in the cabin. OL3 and OL4 waved their hands repeatedly. The situation was serious. This time, the black-clothed man couldn't care less about steering the ship. He quickly walked to the cabin, and the panic-stricken OL3 and OL4 blindly followed behind him. Stepping into the cabin, the black-clothed man couldn't help but gasp when he saw the miserable corpse on the ground. His hair stood on end. Who? The black-clothed man suddenly shouted. The aura of the peak of the late stage of Gold Core realm was released unreservedly. He stared at a corner of the cabin where Lin Yi was. Hee, you finally see me. You pirates are really amateurs. Lin Yi curled his lips and stood up. He looked at the three and said with a faint smile. OL3 and OL4 quivered when they saw this. Even their previous drunkenness was completely scared away. They had only seen the corpse and hadn't seen Lin Yi. Trash. The black-clothed man scolded with a livid face. He didn't know whether he was scolding second brother, who was dead on the ground, or OL3 and OL4 behind him. In any case, in Lin Yi's opinion, these two words were quite accurate. If second brother wasn't trash, how could he be killed so easily? Chapter 43:30. As for OL3 and OL4, they had become like this just from drinking a little wine. They couldn't even notice a living person like himself in the cabin. They were truly trash. His mother opened the door for trash. They were trash to the extreme. Even though Lin Yi was sitting in a hidden corner, he didn't deliberately hide his aura. A normal expert at the peak of the late Golden Core stage could find him with a casual sweep of their divine sense. Just like the man in black, he found Lin Yi immediately after sensing something was wrong. In contrast, OL3 and OL4 were simply unworthy of the title of peak Golden Core stage expert. It was no wonder that they could only be the underlings while the man in black could be the boss. Did you kill OL2? The man in black was on guard as he stared at Lin Yi's every move. OL3 and OL4 behind him also looked nervous as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They couldn't see Lin Yi's true strength, but judging from the way OL2 died, he should have been killed by a single palm strike. Since the other party was someone who could kill a peak Golden Core stage expert with a single palm strike, the three of them were naturally very wary. After all, they were only at the peak of the late Golden Core stage. That's right. If the three of you don't know what's good for you, he'll be your example. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he got up and walked toward the three of them. The man in black, along with OL3 and OL4, looked at each other and retreated until they were on the deck outside. They didn't dare to attack Lin Yi rashly. Who are you? Why did you kill my brother? The man in black had nowhere to retreat, so he finally braced himself and asked in a low voice. He subconsciously thought that this person might be an enemy that OL2 had made during this period of time in the Zhenduan city. Killing without a single word was a common occurrence. Oh, you three really don't remember me? Lin Yi smiled faintly as he breathed in the fresh air on the deck. The man in black was stunned when he heard this. Could it be that this person wasn't an enemy of OL2? I remember. You are the escort. OL4 suddenly pointed at Lin Yi and shouted. He had always had a good memory. Previously, when they were in the cabin, the light was dim so he couldn't see clearly. But now that they were on the deck and the light was bright, he immediately remembered Lin Yi's face. Escort? The black-clothed man and the third brother reacted slowly. They were stunned for a moment before they reacted. Then they carefully sized up Lin Yi. He was equally shocked. It really is you. Not bad. You have a better memory than your second brother. Alright, if you don't want to die, then drive the boat obediently. Lin Yi's words showed that he did not put these three experts at the peak of the late Jindan stage in his eyes. The three of them looked at each other with strange expressions. Then, as if they had heard a big joke, they burst into laughter. The man in black pointed at Lin Yi and said with a grin, "Kid, are you fucking crazy? A piece of trash like you wants to play dirty with me? Ah. The third brother and the fourth brother, who were originally at a loss, also laughed wildly. Previously he had been too shocked to see his second brother's corpse. Secondly, he hadn't completely sobered up from his drunkenness. That was why he had acted so wretchedly. But now that he had figured out the other party's background, he no longer panicked. If they remembered correctly, the kid in front of them was just a piece of trash in the early Jindan stage. In front of these three experts at the peak of the late Jindan stage, he was no different from an ant. They could easily kill him. The corpse is clearly there, but you still want to have wishful thinking that you have everything under control. Could it be that you pirates are all so self-deceiving? Lin Yi mocked with a faint smile. Kid, I don't know what method you used to kill my second brother, but it must have been a sneak attack or drugged. You are too inexperienced to use my second brother's death to threaten me. To tell you the truth, these little tricks were all left over from when I first started out, ha. The black-clothed man laughed disdainfully. Since that is the case, then I have nothing to say. Lin Yi's eyes turned cold, but before he attacked, he suddenly asked, let me ask you a question. Your second brother died so miserably. Don't you feel sad? Sad. Ants will always be ants. You don't even understand the principle of the strong preying on the weak. His death only proves that he was not strong enough. What does it have to do with us? With his death, there is one less person to share the spoils with, and we can get more spiritual jades. We have to thank you for your good deed. The black-clothed man laughed contemptuously. Behind him, the third brother and the fourth brother did not have the slightest trace of sadness on their faces. Instead, their eyes lit up as if they really felt that their second brother's tragic death was not a bad thing, but a pleasant surprise. I see. Then I understand. Lin Yi shook his head lightly. Even the brothers who lived with them day and night treated them like this. These people were hopeless. What do you know? Do you know how you are going to die? You dared to board our ship alone, which has already proved your stupidity. You are hopeless. The black-clothed man sneered and scolded the two people behind him. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill him. As he spoke, the black-clothed man quietly stepped back. His eyes flickered, and it was obvious that he was a little afraid of Lin Yi. He was not as arrogant and conceited as before. Indeed, if it was a sneak attack or drug, even a master at the peak of the late Gold Elixir realm could be killed by a master at the early Gold Elixir realm. But who was the second brother? He was an expert in underhanded means. How could he be so easily tricked by others? So it was very likely that this kid in front of them was not as simple as he looked. If they were not careful, they could easily capsize. To be safe, it was better to let the other two take action and see if this was a trap. The third brother and the fourth brother did not realize the trick at all. After being scolded by the black-clothed man, they immediately laughed and attacked Lin Yi. Killing a weakling at the early Gold Elixir realm was as easy as turning over their hands. This guy in the lead was quite cunning. The corners of Lin Yi's mouth lifted slightly. Then his figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. The third brother and the fourth brother were stunned. The two of them were not as stupid as they thought. This time they went all out and wanted to take the initiative to strike first. They did not expect to suddenly lose track of Lin Yi's whereabouts. The two of them tensed up and quickly used their divine senses to search. However, when they found Lin Yi's position, their faces suddenly changed because at this moment, Lin Yi was standing behind them, less than a step away from the two of them. Take care, I won't see you off. Along with the calm voice, Lin Yi suddenly spread out his palms. Before the two of them had any reaction, the Frenzy Fire 8 Trigram's palm had already hit their backs at the same time. Chapter 43-31. Bang Bang. With two muffled sounds, the third brother and the fourth brother each spat out a mouthful of blood. Like kites with a broken string, they were directly sent flying dozens of feet away and fell into the sea. When the leader of the black-robed men saw this scene, he was stunned on the spot. He stood there in a daze for a long time, unable to speak. Even if they were slightly worse than him, Old Third and Old Fourth were still masters at the peak of the late Gold Core stage. Who would have thought that under his eyes, they would be killed so easily? Because the dock had just been lifted, and because it wasn't far from the dock at this time, there were many ships nearby. When they saw the two fall into the sea, they all came out to the deck to watch the show, but no one meddled. They just watched for a while and took a detour. After sending the third brother and the fourth brother flying, Lin Yi's gaze immediately fell on the leader of the black-clothed men. The black-clothed man suddenly quivered. His first reaction was not to resist, nor to run for his life, but to kneel down with a plop. Big brother, oh no, senior. You must be a nascent soul stage senior. I'm sorry I was wrong. We had eyes but couldn't see and offended you. Please be magnanimous and spare my cheap life. I will never forget this great kindness. The black-clothed man hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. He didn't even care about the image of a gold core stage expert. In front of him, to be able to casually send 2 peak gold core stage experts flying, in his heart, Lin Yi must be a nascent soul stage expert without a doubt. Now that he thought about it, the few of them had actually stolen this person's goods. It could only be said that the ignorant were fearless. Moreover, they were really lucky. If this person had not deliberately hidden his strength and did not make a move, the few of them would have died without a complete corpse. And he wouldn't have been able to live until now. While desperately begging for mercy, the black-clothed man secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he was more careful and didn't attack together. Otherwise, at this time, he would have sunk to the bottom of the sea like the third brother and the fourth brother. He carefully observed Lin Yi's expression. Whether he lived or died, it was all up to him. It wasn't that the black-clothed man didn't want to run, but the key was that Lin Yi's display of strength was too shocking. Even if he wanted to run, he couldn't. Lin Yi looked at the black-clothed man from head to toe, and remained expressionless and didn't speak. The black-clothed man's heart, this kind of pressure, this kind of life and death in the hands of life and death, was not something that ordinary people could bear. Even though the black-clothed man boasted that at this time, he didn't dare to take a breath. Half kneeling to his stomach, he was half to his urine. Half the black-clothed man's to the black-clothed man, and the black-clothed man the black-clothed man. Question mark. Lin to him. Lin's. Are you? Is to black. Black of you, black, of, eh? Oh yes, senior is right. I am black. The black-clothed man nodded quickly. The corners of his mouth twitched. I was dressed like this to show off my power and aura, to let people know that I'm not to be trifled with. Why did it suddenly become Little Black? Was this even a person's name? You tell me yourself. Do you want to live or die? Lin Yi asked playfully. Live, of course I want to live. The black-clothed man answered quickly. If he wasn't desperate, who would be willing to die like this? He still wanted to live well and enjoy a few hundred more years. What? That's fine. I don't have much interest in killing people, so I'll help you. Lin Yi nodded slightly. Really? The black-clothed man was overjoyed. He quickly kowtowed and thank you, senior. Thank you, senior. I will never forget your great kindness. See you again. As he spoke, the black-clothed man hurriedly stood up and prepared to jump into the sea. Compared to staying on the boat, he would rather jump into the sea. Even if he drowned, he did not dare to stay on the boat. What if this demon changed his mind and decided to kill him? What should he do then? Come back. Lin Yi's voice suddenly turned cold, scaring the black-clothed man. He quickly stopped in his tracks and waited for his orders. Say, Senior, do you have any other orders? The black-clothed man suppressed the fear in his heart and asked, Did I say you could leave? Lin Yi said with an unfriendly smile. But. The black-clothed man's heart sank. He stuttered for a long time and could not say anything. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Damn it, this demon is really going back on his word. Set sail. Lin Yi ordered coldly. The reason why he deliberately left this man behind was to set sail for him. After all, he had never had the experience of sailing alone. Even if he could learn how to control a ship, it was easy for him to master it with his ability. However, controlling a ship and sailing were two different things. In case there was an unexpected situation on the way, he may not be able to handle it alone. It was better to leave an experienced person with him. As a pirate, the black-clothed man in front of him must be an expert. He was the right person. Set sail? The black-clothed man thought he was going to die this time. When he heard Lin Yi's words, he was overjoyed. It turned out that he was not going to kill anyone. As long as he could set sail, he would do it even if he had to eat shit. He immediately nodded and asked, Yes, Senior, where are you going? Saliva Rock Island. Lin Yi said and sat down. Saliva Rock Island was the destination of this escort. Lin Yi had taken back the cargo ship, but he did not intend to take it for himself. He might as well do a good deed until the end. Saliva Rock Island? The black-clothed man was slightly taken aback, but he did not dare to say more. He was afraid that Lin Yi would be unhappy and change his mind, so he quickly nodded and did as he was told. Among all the islands in the luxuriant Arc Sea area, Saliva Rock Island was the closest to the South Island. It was often shrouded in miasma all year round, and there were not many people on the island, let alone ordinary businessmen. Even pirates were not willing to go there. After all, that place was easy to be attacked by the spirit beasts of the South Island. It was very dangerous. But now that Lin Yi had spoken, the black-clothed man could only do as he was told. He just had to take some risks to go to Saliva Rock Island, but if he disobeyed Lin Yi's order, he would be killed immediately. It was clear which one to choose. Although Saliva Rock Island belonged to the luxuriant Arc Sea area, in terms of geographical location, it was closer to the Zhenduan city than the center of the luxuriant Arc Sea area. After sailing on the vast sea for 2 days, Lin Yi had already arrived at Saliva Rock Island. Chapter 43-32. It was rare that during this period of time, Saliva Peng Island was the same as Lufeng Forest. The miasma happened to be dissipating. Their luck was good. They didn't even need to take the pills that were specially used to resist the miasma. A ship is coming. A ship is coming. We're saved. We're saved. Before the cargo ship docked, Lin Yi heard children shouting in the distance. Then a group of people quickly gathered at the dock. There were men and women, old and young, and all of them had a happy smile on their faces. What's going on? Lin Yi couldn't help but wonder. There weren't a lot of people gathered at the dock, there were only about 100 or so people, and they all looked like normal people. There weren't even many Sky-class masters, let alone Golden Core masters. There weren't even many Sky-class masters, let alone Foundation establishment. Whether it was the true Segment C area or the luxuriant Arc Sea area, they were all chaotic and ownerless places. Lin Yi had always thought that the people who could live here should be powerful cultivators, and the weakest should be a Foundation establishment stage expert. He didn't expect that there were only ordinary people here. It seemed that at most, it could only be regarded as a small tribe of cultivators. This situation was really beyond Lin Yi's expectations. When the cargo ship slowly docked, an imposing middle-aged man walked out from the crowd below. He stood on the deck and cupped his hands and asked Lin Yi, "I'm Fang Family Village of Saliva Peng Island, the owner of the village, Fang Bai Wu. May I ask if your ship is equal to escort agency?" Lin Yi's eyes suddenly narrowed slightly. This Fang Bai Wu's momentum was condensed, and his strength couldn't be seen through even with his golden finger. He was actually a nascent soul stage expert. Sure enough, to be able to survive in this chaotic sea area, even if it was just a small tribe of cultivators, he absolutely couldn't be underestimated. Lin Yi intuitively felt that this person's strength should be considered extraordinary even among the nascent soul stage experts. "Yes. I'm Lin Yi, an escort from Equal to Escort Agency. Greetings to Owner Fang." Lin Yi jumped off the ship. He cupped his hands and bowed. "It's been a long journey. Young hero Ling, you must have worked hard. Would it be possible for you to invite the other escorts down to meet me so that I can express my gratitude in person?" Fang Bai Wu said politely with a smile. "Manor Lord Fang, to be honest, I'm the only escort." Lin Yi shook his head with a bitter smile. "Ah, but there is clearly another person on the ship?" Fang Bai Wu suddenly felt strange. He was a nascent soul stage expert, the people on the ship could not escape his perception. Moreover, this escort was worth a fortune. How could the Heavens Equal Escort Agency only send one escort? He Manor Lord Fang, you've misunderstood. That guy is a pirate that I caught to do manual labor. He's not an escort, Lin Yi explained with a smile. Pirates? Fang Bai Wu stared blankly for a moment, then suddenly realized, no wonder the goods should have been shipped a month ago, but they only arrived now. Could it be because of the pirate attack? That's right. We should have arrived long ago, but we were robbed by these pirates midway. We had no choice at that time, and then we were delayed in Zhenduan City for a while. We were planning to return to Weilu City. We didn't expect to run into them again, so we simply snatched them back. I hope we didn't delay Manor Lord Fang's matter. Lin Yi explained the cause and effect of the incident in a few words. Although he didn't go into detail, Fang Bai Wu could hear the difficulty in these few words. He immediately bowed deeply to Lin Yi and said, Young hero Ling, on behalf of the 500 people of the Fang family, this Fang thanks you for your kindness. Manor Lord Fang is too kind. As an escort of the Heavens Equal Escort Agency, this is what I should do. There is no need for such kindness, Manor Lord Fang. Lin Yi quickly waved his hand. Young hero Ling, there's something you don't know, but the things on this ship are life-saving supplies for everyone in the Fang family. Fang Bai Wu explained to Lin Yi, in a few days, it will be the Heavens Sacrifice Day. Every year at this time, the miasma fog will return, and it is especially thick and poisonous. Even the locals who have lived here since they were young must rely on the miasma dispersal pill to survive. Otherwise, the consequences are unimaginable. If it's light, they will be crippled, and if it's heavy, they will die. Is that serious? Linny couldn't help but be shocked. He thought that the locals here had been baptized by the miasma since young and should have adapted to it. It's even worse than that. The miasma dispersal pill is the lifeblood of our Fong family. However, a while ago we were attacked by the spirit beasts and even the storehouse was destroyed. Seeing that the Heaven's Sacrifice Day is approaching, I could only spend a large amount of money to ask the Hong Family Chamber of Commerce to buy the miasma dispersal pill. The other supplies are not important and it's fine if they are lost, but the miasma dispersal pill cannot be lost. If young hero Ling didn't deliver it in time, all 500 of us. Fong Baiwu shook his head with lingering fear. To be honest, these days he had been so worried that his hair had turned white. If Lin Yi hadn't delivered the miasma dispersal pill today, he would have taken the entire Fong family and fled Saliva Rock Island. Although they could avoid the Heaven's Sacrifice Day, they couldn't avoid coming into contact with the outside world. The outside world was full of vicious and evil people, and they were mostly ordinary people. If they went out, many people would die. Moreover, it was difficult to leave one's homeland. Unless it was absolutely necessary, who would be willing to leave Saliva Rock Island? After Lin Yi heard this, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of emotions. Fortunately, he had encountered this group of pirates, and fortunately he didn't just stand by and do nothing. Otherwise, so many people would have suffered. That was a few hundred lives. Pirates were detestable, but the most detestable one was the mastermind behind this incident, Wei Xiaodong. This guy didn't even let go of such life-saving goods, treating the lives of hundreds of people in Fong Family Village as if they were grass. It was obvious that he had completely lost his conscience. Such a scum was truly devoid of conscience. Originally, even if he had been tricked by this bastard on account of Hong Zhong's old friend, Lin Yi didn't intend to specifically target this Wei Xiaodong. After all, he himself didn't suffer much losses. As long as he gave a warning, there was no harm in turning a blind eye. But now Lin Yi changed his mind. This Wei Xiaodong, if he didn't make him pay a painful price, the heavens wouldn't tolerate it. Everyone in Fong Family Village was overjoyed. As they sent people to unload the goods on the ship, Fong Biwu personally came forward to welcome Lin Yi into the main hall of the Fong Family Village, treating him as an esteemed guest. To the entire Fong Family Village, Lin Yi could be considered as their true savior. If not for Lin Yi, their entire clan would have faced a calamity of annihilation. Naturally, they would receive him with the highest standards. Lin Yi originally didn't intend to stay on Saliva Rock Island for long, but he couldn't resist the enthusiasm of the people in Fong Family Village and was forced to stay for 2 days. After much persuasion, he was finally escorted out of Saliva Rock Island by the entire clan of several hundred people. These people from Fong Family Village were surprisingly simple and adorable. If it were any other ordinary person, they would have already done themselves justice by not taking it out on others. Chapter 43-33. Lin Yi waved goodbye to the people on the pier while sighing in his heart. But at the same time he was a bit scared. These people were too enthusiastic and he wasn't someone who could keep people at arm's length. If it wasn't for the fact that the Heaven's Sacrifice Day was approaching and the miasma would affect the journey, he would have to stay here for at least a month. After leaving the pier, Lin Yi suddenly said, "Xiaohei, come here." Yes. Senior, what orders do you have?" The black-clothed man didn't dare to be negligent and quickly walked over. "You didn't make any trouble for me these 2 days and you didn't run away. You're very tactful." Lin Yi said lightly. "I wouldn't dare. Without Senior's orders, this one wouldn't dare." The black-clothed man nodded and smiled apologetically. But in his heart he was cursing. Only a fool wouldn't want to run away. But Saliva Peng Island was the Fong family's territory. Unless he forcefully took the boat, he would only die. Moreover, Fong Baiwu had specifically asked the Fong family's old housekeeper to keep an eye on him. That was a nascent soul stage expert. Under his watch, how could he escape? "It's good that you have this awareness. Otherwise, I'll have to kill you." Lin Yi smiled and said, "Go set sail?" "Oh yes. The black-clothed man quickly nodded, but then asked, "May I ask, Senior, where are we going next?" "Dense Arc City," Lin Yi said lightly. The black-clothed man couldn't help but look embarrassed. Not only did he mess up Wei Xiaodong's task, but he also offended the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. No matter which one he met, his end wouldn't be good. So the place he didn't dare to go the most was dense Ark City. What? You have a problem? That's not a problem. I'll control the boat myself. As for you, you can go accompany your 3 pirate brothers. Lin Yi's eyes flashed with killing intent. No, I don't mind. I definitely don't mind. Senior, please calm down. I will do as you say. The black-clothed man hurriedly shook his head and hurriedly ran to sail the ship. Although the luxuriant Ark Sea area was a dangerous place for him, it was better than being killed by Lin Yi now. The situation was not in his favor, so he could only take one step at a time. A few days later, the cargo ship that Lin Yi was on finally docked at the dock of luxuriant Ark City. Looking at the bustling scene before him that was exactly the same as before, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh with emotion. When he first came here with Huang Xiaotao, the two of them were only at the early stage of the Gold Core realm. They were unfamiliar with this place and they were in trouble as soon as they came here. It could even be said that a great disaster was imminent. Only a month had passed, and Huang Xiaotao had already gone to the East Continent's Morning Star Academy, while he himself had already broken through to the middle Golden Core stage. Life is really full of ups and downs. The black-clothed man secretly stared at Lin Yi's reaction. At the same time, he was secretly accumulating his true qi. He was ready to wait for Lin Yi to show the slightest bit of negligence and immediately make a move. Of course, he absolutely didn't dare to deal with Lin Yi alone. He just wanted to create a little chaos and take the opportunity to escape. After all, the current luxuriant Ark City was a place of trouble for him. It was better to escape as far as possible as early as possible. Lin Yi stood on the deck and looked at the busy dock below. He lazily stretched his waist. It seemed that he was preparing to jump off the cargo ship. At this moment, the black-clothed man's spirit was aroused and he was about to make a move. However, before he could throw a punch or half a kick, his eyes suddenly shook. Lin Yi's figure suddenly appeared in front of him, causing him to stagger in fright. Say, Senior, you are... The black-clothed man repeatedly retreated, while his heart was in a perilous situation. How is this guy so fast? He appears and disappears like a ghost. Little Black, it's rare for you to be so obedient. Now you want to run? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. His divine sense had been locked on the black-clothed man. As long as there was the slightest fluctuation of true qi on the black-clothed man, it couldn't escape his perception. No, Senior, you misunderstood. I was just a little excited just now. I really didn't want to run. I swear to God. The black-clothed man hurriedly swore. Didn't want to run? Lin Yi smiled and nodded lightly. Since Little Black is so cooperative, it couldn't be better. You don't have to die and you don't have to dirty my hands. It's a good thing for both of us. Yes, thank you, Senior, for sparing my little life. The black-clothed man was overjoyed when he heard this. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that he was caught red-handed this time and he was dead for sure. However, before he could finish his qi, he suddenly blacked out. Lin Yi swept his foot on his head, and his whole body flew out. He fell awkwardly on the dock, causing a commotion among the surrounding people. Before he fainted, he said unwillingly, "Didn't you say that you wouldn't kill me?" "Yes, I won't kill you, but I didn't say that I won't kick you." Lin Yi raised the corner of his mouth slightly. He really didn't intend to kill anyone, but this guy was a master at the peak of the late-stage Gold Core realm, not an ordinary cat or dog. He was full of conspiracy. If he was allowed to jump around like this, he might cause trouble. Lin Yi was going to let him testify against Wei Xiaodong. Of course, it was better to make him faint first to save the trouble. Lin Yi jumped off the cargo ship and said a few words to the supervisor of the dock storage office. After the cargo ship was stored, he walked straight to the black-clothed man. Under the onlookers, he picked him up with one hand and was ready to return to the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency to report. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the distance. He laughed proudly. "Ha! I thought you just ran away and didn't dare to come back in this life. I really didn't expect that after hiding for so long, there would be a day for you to come out again." When the surrounding people heard this voice, their faces changed and they hurriedly moved aside. Lin Yi looked up and saw that it was his first enemy after coming to the luxuriant Ark Sea area, the young master of the poisonous eye mercenary group, Cheng Jiutian. Behind him was still the peak of the early-stage nascent soul realm. "Humph, it's really a small world." Lin Yi smiled coldly and casually threw the unconscious black-clothed man aside. He had expected this scene. A person like Cheng Jiutian was a guy who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Last time he made a fool of him in public. If he didn't get back at him, he would never let it go. He estimated that these days, his one-eyed mercenary group's spies had been planted at the dock. Before Lin Yi reached the shore, he had probably already received the news. Well said, it's a small world. Since you have made an enemy like me, you are destined to be finished in this life. Qing Jiutian sneered proudly. When he was about to let his people take action, he suddenly looked stunned. Why are you alone? Where is that chick? Why is she gone? Did she die outside? Ah. Chapter 43-34. She's not dead, but I'm afraid you're not far from death. The corners of Lin Yi's mouth raised a cold arc, and the killing intent in his eyes was fierce. At this point it was impossible not to kill. You're still talking big when you're about to die. It seems that there is a saying that is true, a dead duck is stubborn. The more a duck like you is about to die, the more stubborn its mouth is, haha. Qing Jiutian laughed complacently. It was a bit of a pity that he had to deal with Lin Yi alone, but it wasn't a big problem. This way he'd be able to vent his anger. As for the girl, he'd just have someone keep an eye on her later. Moreover, after returning last time, Old Kong also told him that the reason why Ling Yi and the woman were so powerful was because their joint attack skills were extraordinary. If they couldn't cooperate with each other, they would just be ordinary early gold core stage masters, not worth mentioning. He didn't expect that the two of them would separate themselves, which saved him a lot of trouble. Whether it's a lie or not, you'll know soon. Lin Yi's eyes flashed, and his figure suddenly swept toward the other party. His speed was so fast that even an early nascent soul stage master like Old Kong couldn't help but be caught off guard. Qing Jiutian was immediately shocked and hurriedly retreated. At this moment he couldn't hide the fear on his face. Don't be fooled by his arrogant and condescending appearance. After all, he had learned his lesson from last time. Even if he knew that the other party's strength was much lower than his, he was still afraid. At the same time that Qing Jiutian retreated in panic, Old Kong, who was beside him, instantly unleashed his full strength. Before he even arrived, the powerful true qi of the peak of the early nascent soul stage poured out in torrents, firmly blocking in front of Qing Jiutian. It formed a thick protective barrier. Although Lin Yi's outbreak was sudden, Old Kong was actually prepared for it. In his view, Lin Yi was alone, and since he couldn't use a powerful joint attack skill, then he was no threat to him. The only chance of survival for the other party was in Qing Jiutian. Therefore, as long as he protected Qing Jiutian from harm, the other party was already a cooked duck, and could forget about flying away. Seeing this, Qing Jiutian's heart settled. This was what he had instructed him to do before. He told Old Kong that no matter what happened, his first reaction must be to protect his own safety. Even if this Lin Yi's strength was much stronger than it looked, it was absolutely impossible for him to break through the defense of a peak early Yuanying stage master by himself. The truth was that there was a huge gap in strength between the nascent soul stage and the Aura's core stage. No matter how talented one was, it was not so easy to cross it. There was still a slight possibility, but those below the middle stage of the Jindan realm should not even think about it. However, in the next moment, the expression on Qing Jiutian's face froze. As for Old Kong, it was even more unbelievable. Frenzied Fire 8 trigrams palm, 30th form. This was the strongest martial skill that Lin Yi had mastered so far. He struck out with his palm without any hesitation. However, his target had never been Qing Jientian. It was Old Kong. Qing Jiutian was only at the late stage of the Aura's core stage. Lin Yi did not put this kind of trash in his eyes at all. There was only one person present who could really threaten him. Only Old Kong, a powerful peak early Yuanying stage master, could. Everything he did was to strangle this biggest threat as soon as possible. Last time Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao suddenly attacked Old Kong. This time only Lin Yi was alone, but he still made the same choice. This was something that Old Kong would never have thought of. At first glance it seemed that he was attacking Qing Jiutian. Everything was so realistic and logical. Old Kong did not hesitate to protect Qing Jiutian with all his strength, but he did not expect that this was just a pretense. This time, because Old Kong put all his energy on Qing Jiutian, he was almost defenseless. He did not even release his qi to protect his body. He really did not know whether to say that he was too straightforward or too much. Boom. Caught off guard, Lin Yi's materialized 8 trigrams fire palm landed right on Old Kong's chest. That wasn't the end of it. Lin Yi followed up with a powerful mad fire thousand legs. In front of so many people at the docks, Old Kong, a master at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul stage, couldn't even fight back. Seeing Old Kong being kicked away and falling to the ground fiercely, spitting blood and foaming at the mouth, no one knew whether he was dead or alive. Everyone present couldn't help but gasp. When they looked at Lin Yi again, their eyes had completely changed to looking at a monster. There were many masters present. At this moment, many people also saw that Lin Yi's strength was probably only at the middle stage of the Aura's core stage. However, such a master at the middle stage of the Aura's core stage, under the watchful eyes of everyone, beat Old Kong, a master at the peak of the early Yuanying stage, into such a state. Everyone couldn't help but ask the same question. Was this world crazy? Glancing at Old Kong on the ground, no matter whether he was dead or not, at least for a few months, it was impossible to recover his strength. Even Lin Yi himself was a little surprised. In his expectation, it would be good if he could injure the other party in this confrontation. He did not expect to directly beat him into a pulp. It was so smooth that it was somewhat unbelievable. This could only be explained by two reasons. First, Lin Yi's strength was not what it used to be. Second, Old Kong, a master at the peak of the early Yuanying stage, was too straightforward, and even, There was a sudden burst of screams from the back of the crowd, and then they saw a panicked figure fleeing from the dock. It was Qing Jiutian. Getting back his face was secondary. The only thing this high and mighty young master of the Poisonous Eye mercenary group had to consider at this moment was whether he could escape back to the headquarters of the Poisonous Eye mercenary group alive. Even Old Kong was so vulnerable in front of the other party. He was a master at the late Aura's core stage whose strength was far inferior. At this moment, his heart was trembling. If the other party caught up, only death would be left. No matter how powerful his father Qing Haonan was, it would be useless. As for Old Kong, whose life and death was unknown, Qing Jiutian simply did not care. His own life was in danger. Who the hell cared about the life and death of this kind of subordinate? Looking at Qing Jiutian's fleeing back, Lin Yi smiled coldly, but he did not intend to chase. It was not that he did not dare to kill Qing Jiutian, but there was no need to do so at once. Up until now, the other party had already received a sufficient lesson and retreated in the face of difficulties. At the very least, they shouldn't dare offend him again in a short period of time. On the other hand, if he were to kill Qing Jiutian in public now, then even though it would be extremely easy in this way, it would be equivalent to publicly declaring war against the entire Poison Eye mercenary group. The outcome would definitely be a fight to the death, and there wouldn't be the slightest room for negotiation. Chapter 43-35. With Lin Yi's current strength, he could deal with a few nascent soul practitioners, but if he wanted to fight Qing Haonan's Poison Eye mercenaries all by himself, he'd be dreaming. He had no chance of winning at all, and he wouldn't be able to stay in the Wei Arc waters anymore if he really had to fight to the death. Lin Yi was never afraid of trouble, but he would not look for trouble either. He did not want to fight to the death with the Poison Eye mercenary group unless it was absolutely necessary. At least before he left the Wei Arc Sea, it would be best to avoid this kind of thing if possible. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi turned around, picked up the unconscious man in black, and walked towards the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, leaving the people at the pier to discuss. Even an expert like Old Kong was crippled just like that. This person is really powerful. Looks like our Wei Arc City will have a new talent. He's obviously in the mid-golden core stage, but he could defeat an early original infant stage expert in one move. Who is he? Could he be a genius disciple from some powerful faction? Yes, it's very possible. I heard that the East Continent's Morning Star Academy has been selecting disciples in the Zhenduan Sea for the past few days. This person could be a genius disciple from the Morning Star Academy who came here in advance. Ignorant and ill-informed, what do you know? This person is not a disciple from the Morning Star Academy. He's an escort from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. I think his name is Ling Yi or something. He's an expert that the young master, Qi Wenhan, personally tried to rope in. Yes, I remember now. He fought with Qing Qitian here last time. He also had the upper hand and lost to the same person twice. This young Master Guitian is really blind. These people from the Poison Eye mercenary group have always been arrogant and despotic, especially this Master Kamita. Damn, they make me pay protection fees every day. Even the pier belongs to them. If they finally met their match. Serves them right. Lower your voice, the Poison Eye mercenary group is here. Let's hide. What followed was all sorts of discussions and chaos at the dock. None of this had anything to do with Lin Yi anymore. He grabbed the black-clothed man with one hand and tossed him into a haystack in the corner of the yard after arriving at the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. He would not wake up anytime soon, so there was no need to worry about him running away. As Lin Yi walked towards the mission hall, The two guards at the door were surprised to see Lin Yi suddenly return. They looked at each other in dismay. They whispered to each other, "This guy actually dared to come back. His skin is really thick. What do you mean?" Lin Yi furrowed his brows and looked at the two of them, confused. As escorts of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, Lin Yi had no idea what was going on. Returning to hand in the mission was a matter of course. How could he be so thick-skinned? There must be someone behind this. Discussions aside, the guards had no intention of stopping Lin Yi. No matter how fiercely they discussed in private, as long as there were no orders from above, they would not act on their own. They only looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression as they watched him enter the mission hall. At this moment, the mission hall was bustling with activity. There were more than 10 escorts gathered there, including the two people that Lin Yi had worked with before, Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. Originally, the manager was assigning tasks to everyone, and the escorts were eager to give it a try. From the looks of it, this should be a lucrative and low-risk job. However, when Lin Yi walked in, the entire hall suddenly fell silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Yi, their expressions complicated. This was especially so for Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. When they saw Lin Yi, their expressions changed. They looked at each other, their eyes clearly showing signs of panic. Lin Yi cupped his hands at the crowd and was about to speak when Li Yanji suddenly jumped out and pointed at Lin Yi, scolding, "What a daring traitor you are! Lin Yi, you actually have the guts to come back. How unexpected. Everyone, let's capture this traitor. Don't let him escape." "That's right, the appearance of this scum here is an insult to all of us. We must capture him and punish him as a warning to others." Guan Ziyuan also jumped out to support him. Although the reactions of the rest of the people were not as intense as the two of them, the way they looked at Lin Yi was clearly filled with disdain and disdain. There were even some traces of enmity. Even so, it was impossible for Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan to incite them to attack together. Everyone present was a wily old fox that had roamed the Jianghu for many years. How could they be used so easily? It was indeed these two fellows who were behind this. When Lin Yi saw this melodramatic scene, how could he not understand the situation? In an instant, he had already figured out the cause and effect. "What do you mean?" Lin Yi laughed coldly and looked at the two of them without batting an eyelid. Today he wanted to see how these two fellows were going to continue their act. "What do I mean?" Your skin is really thick to a certain extent. After committing such a shameless act, you still dare to come back and pretend that nothing happened?" Li Yanji laughed coldly. In the eyes of those who did not know what had happened, it was as if the incident was real. "Brat, let me tell you, in our Equal Heaven Escort Agency, escaping in the face of danger is considered a traitor. That is a serious crime. Moreover, what you did back then was not as simple as escaping in the face of danger. You acted as an accomplice to the evildoer, tarnishing the reputation of our entire escort agency. Moreover, we had to pay a sky-high compensation. Even if you had several lives, it would not be enough." Guan Ziyuan chimed in indignantly. When Lin Yi saw this scene, he secretly curled his lips. These two fellows did not have much strength or courage, but they were good at acting. No wonder so many people present were bewitched by them, acted as an accomplice to the evildoer? "Why don't you tell me, how did I act as an accomplice to the evildoer?" Lin Yi was not as exasperated as everyone thought he would be. Instead, he calmly asked with a smile. The way he looked at Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan was as if he was looking at two clowns. It was as if he did not care about the two of them at all. "You traitor, how dare you be so arrogant?" Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan looked at each other and were instantly shocked. To the two of them, the best situation was to provoke Ling Yi with words. Then Ling Yi would be forced to do something out of desperation. That way the crime would be completely confirmed. Then they could take advantage of the chaos to silence Ling Yi and Guan Ziyuan. That way there would be no repercussions. However, they did not expect that Ling Yi would still be so calm and composed even though the pot of shit had been placed on his head. He did not show any signs of anger. What should they do? They could not possibly kill someone in front of everyone, right? Chapter 43-36. In that case, the escorts present might not think much of it, but it would be hard to explain to the young master, Qi Wenhan. After all, he was the young master of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. No matter how big a mistake his escorts made, he had to deal with them personally. Outsiders had no right to interfere. Arrogant? I don't think so. An upright person is not afraid of a crooked shadow. But the two of you are so agitated. Do you have some unspeakable conspiracy? Lin Yi crossed his arms and smiled playfully. In his eyes, Li Guan and Lin Yi weren't strong enough to withstand a single blow, and they weren't good at scheming either. Clowns like them were nothing to worry about, and with Lin Yi's personality, there was no way he'd get angry over these two. After all, they were not on the same level. He had seen people fight, but he had never seen a man fight with ants. He would either ignore them or crush them to death. There was no need to get angry. Sharp-tongued. Seeing that the other party was so calm, Li Guan and Li Yinji suddenly had a bad feeling. If they continued to drag this out, something bad might happen. Li Yinji suddenly had an idea and asked, "What about that woman? Why didn't she come back with you? Did she follow the pirates and become a pirate's wife?" "That's right. Back then you used your junior sister to curry favor with the pirates. It seems that you've completely lost your junior sister. How dare you come back alone? I've seen many shameless people, but I've never seen anyone as shameless as you." Guan Ziyuan quickly cooperated and sneered, "If you were just spreading rumors and causing trouble, I could consider sparing your worthless lives. But since you've slandered my junior sister, I can only say this to the two of you, I'm deeply sorry." Lin Yi's eyes suddenly turned cold. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. Although he did not release a strong aura, the escorts present all felt a chill in their hearts and unconsciously took a few steps back. "You've finally been poked in the foot by us. You're desperate, aren't you? Show me if you can." Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan were overjoyed instead of shocked. They continued to provoke Lin Yi with words. They couldn't wait for Lin Yi to fly into a rage out of humiliation. If that happened, everything would be fine. "Do you really think I won't dare to kill you?" Lin Yi glanced at the two clowns with some pity. If he didn't have any evidence in his hands, he might not be able to clear his name if he made a move on them. Unfortunately, he had solid evidence in his hands, so he wasn't afraid of them slandering him. "If you sure talk big, why don't you try and kill us? With your strength at the early gold core stage, you dare to be so arrogant. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at?" Li Guan continued to provoke them, courting death. Lin Yi shook his head indifferently and immediately prepared to kill the two of them. One was at the peak of the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, and the other was at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. However, at that moment, a person suddenly walked out from the inner hall. Looking at the crowd, he frowned and said, "Why aren't you working properly? Why are you making a ruckus here?" "Greetings, young master." The group of escorts hurriedly greeted him in unison. The person who had come was the young master of the Qitian escort agency, Qi Wenhan. Lin Yi suppressed his murderous intent as he watched the situation unfold. He had solid evidence on hand, so even if he killed Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan, the truth would still come out in the end. However, if he did it in front of Qi Wenhan, it would be a little too much. Even if he cleared things up afterward, he wouldn't be able to stay in the Equals escort agency any longer. Moreover, after interacting with him previously, Lin Yi felt that Qi Wenhan was actually quite a smart person. He didn't seem like someone who would be deceived by Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan with a few simple words. He might as well wait and see and listen to what he had to say first. His gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on Lin Yi in the middle. Qi Wenhan couldn't help but be shocked, and his expression immediately became somewhat complicated. "Lin Yi, the traitor, has returned. Young master, please punish him severely as a warning to others." Seeing this, Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan's expressions also became somewhat strange as they hurriedly jumped out and said. The two of them secretly sighed in their hearts. Seeing that Lin Yi had already taken the bait, everything would be fine once they made a move. In the end, Qi Wenhan just had to come at this moment, and now the situation was out of their control again. Little did they know that if Qi Wenhan had not come out, the two of them would have already become two corpses. They didn't even know that they had taken a trip to the gates of hell, and even felt that it was a pity. The world really lacked many things, but there was no lack of idiots who thought they were smart. Upon hearing this, Qi Wenhan's expression darkened. Sizing up Lin Yi, he did not immediately speak. Instead, he waved his hand at the two of them, indicating that they should not be impatient. Ever since Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan returned empty-handed about a month ago, knowing that the precious goods had been stolen, the days of the Heaven's Equal escort agency had been extremely difficult. As the young master who was gradually taking over the agency, he was even more troubled. The reputation that the Heaven's Equal escort agency had built up over the past few decades had suffered greatly because of this incident. Even their status in the Verdant Arc territorial waters was in jeopardy. Not only that, they had to pay the Hong Merchant Guild a total of 300,000 spirit jades according to the contract they had signed beforehand. Only then did they manage to force the Hong Merchant Guild to shut up and not spread the news. This series of losses was a huge blow to the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, especially to the young master, Qi Wenhan. According to Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan's report, the main culprits behind all these losses were Lin Yi and Guan Ziyuan. Although the other party has 4 late Golden Elixir Realm experts who are very powerful, we also have 4 people. Even if there is a huge disparity in our strength, if we were to fight to the death we would still have a chance. However, we did not expect Ling Yi and his junior sister to surrender on the spot when they encountered the enemy. Instead, they became the pirates' minions, acting as accomplices to the evildoers. The 2 of us had no choice but to let the goods fall into the hands of the pirates. These were the exact words that Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan had said at that time. If this was really the case, then the main culprits of this incident were undoubtedly Lin Yi and Guan Ziyuan. There was even reason to speculate that the pirates had colluded with Lin Yi and Guan Ziyuan beforehand. Otherwise they would not have waited so coincidentally, and Lin Yi and Guan Ziyuan would not have surrendered so naturally. However, Qi Wenhan did not completely believe this one-sided story. When he heard this he was actually a little puzzled. Although he had only interacted with Lin Yi once, his instincts told him that Lin Yi wasn't the kind of person who would betray him. Chapter 43-37. As the young master of the escort agency, Qi Wenhan had seen all sorts of people. He had always been very confident in his judgment of people, and had never made any mistakes. Furthermore, if this Ling Yi really was a traitor, why would he dare to return alone after surrendering to the pirates without a second word? There were only 2 possibilities. Either he was not afraid of death or there was something else to this. Although Qi Wenhan was still relatively objective, his expression did not look any better. After all, he had suffered for an entire month because of this incident. It was only yesterday that he had finally gathered the 300,000 spiritual jades as compensation to the Hong Merchant Association and sent it to Wei Xiaodong. Only then did the matter come to an end. Qi Wenhan had never expected that Ling Yi would return alone right after he had dealt with the problem outside. This was perfect. After all, it was impossible to know a man's heart. Today was the perfect opportunity for him to confront Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan face to face. The impact of this incident was too great, and he had to clarify the cause and effect. Otherwise, he would not let this matter rest. Li Yinji, Guan Ziyuan, Ling Yi, all 3 of you are involved. In front of everyone, explain everything clearly. This incident must come to an end today. Qi Wenhan said to the crowd in a low voice. Yes, young master, I'll speak first. Li Yinji hurriedly said. Anyone with a bit of experience would know that this kind of thing was advantageous to the party who spoke first. This was because everyone would have a preconceived impression of what was going on. As long as there were no major mistakes in logic, they would naturally be in an undefeatable position. Furthermore, he and Guan Ziyuan were veteran permanent escorts of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Their experience was far beyond that of a newly joined escort like Lin Yi. No matter how astute and fair Qi Wenhan was, it was inevitable that there would be a gap between them. It was only natural that he would believe the words of the 2 of them more. The sudden development of the situation was something that the 2 of them had never expected. Now that things had come to this, the 2 of them had nowhere else to go. They could only think of a way to slander Lin Yi in front of everyone so that he would not be able to defend himself. Previously, when the 2 of them had just escaped, they insisted that Lin Yi and his companion were the main culprits of this incident. Taking advantage of Lin Yi and Huang Xiaodao's absence, Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan took the opportunity to pour dirty water on them. If they did not do this and others knew that Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan had surrendered without a fight, they would no longer be able to work as escorts in the future. At the very least, they would no longer be able to establish themselves in the Equal of Heaven Escort Agency. And now, the 2 of them were in an even more difficult situation. If everyone knew that the 2 of them not only surrendered without a fight, but also slandered their companion, it would be a serious matter. It wouldn't be as simple as losing their jobs. According to the rules of Jianghu, this kind of treachery was punishable by 3 knives and 6 holes. Therefore, no matter what, Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan had to convict Lin Yi today. Moreover, it had to be impeccable, leaving him speechless. Hearing this, Qi Wenhan nodded indifferently. In any case, the 3 of them were going to confront each other. As long as the truth was revealed, it didn't matter to him who spoke first. That day we departed from Weiwan City. Logically speaking, the escort route should be strictly confidential. Other than young master and shopkeeper Wei, there were only the 4 of us escorts. Moreover, because the route we chose was very secluded, coupled with the thick sea fog, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for us to meet anyone, let alone pirates. Unless Li Yanji was afraid that he would make a mistake, so he weighed every word he said. When his words fell into the ears of the others, they sounded very reasonable. Unless what? Continue, Qi Wenhan said coldly. Yes, under such circumstances we were still ambushed by pirates. There's only one explanation: someone is a traitor. Li Yanji said decisively. This was not something he had made up on the spot. After all, there was indeed something fishy about the appearance of the pirates. It would be too much of a coincidence to say that these pirates had not been prepared and had just happened to pass by that desolate place by accident. Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads. This analysis was reasonable. They were all experienced Jianghu people. Under such circumstances, the possibility of a traitor being a traitor was indeed very high. That's right. At that time, when the 4 pirates at the peak of the Golden Elixir realm appeared, Brother Li and I didn't even have time to react. Ling Yi and his junior sister surrendered without saying anything and even helped the pirates to keep an eye on the 2 of us. 2 against 6, we had no choice but to let them do as they pleased. It's obvious who the traitor is. Guan Ziyuan followed up and secretly exchanged glances with Li Yanji. The 2 of them obviously felt that this explanation was impeccable and were extremely pleased with themselves. For a moment, everyone's gaze was once again focused on Lin Yi. According to Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan's explanation, Lin Yi was really going to be accused of being a traitor. Ling Yi, what do you say? Qi Wenhan looked at Lin Yi and asked. Regardless of whether he believed the explanation of Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan, since it was a confrontation, he naturally had to give Lin Yi a chance to speak. Lin Yi smiled indifferently and turned his head to look at Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Are you 2 done?" "Yes, why? Are you still trying to quibble? The facts are clear, there's nothing else to explain, right?" Li Yanji laughed coldly and immediately said to Qi Wenhan, "Young master, he has admitted it. Please punish him and severely punish the traitor as a warning to others." Qi Wenhan frowned. Although it sounded like it was indeed the case, the fact that Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan could not wait to convict Ling Yi was a little thought-provoking. "Yi, are you too stupid? Brother Qi asked me just now and not the 2 of you. You are so anxious to convict me. Even a fool can see that there's something fishy about this. Are you feeling guilty?" Lin Yi said calmly. "Feeling guilty? Both of us are speaking the truth. What is there to feel guilty about? Since things have already come to this, do you still want to accuse us of framing an innocent person? I advise you not to be too naive," Guan Ziyuan said with a cold smile. "From the beginning to the end, it's only the words of the 2 of you. Furthermore, there's no evidence to speak of. Do I still need to accuse you? Do you think everyone is listening to a storyteller and can make up whatever you want?" Lin Yi could not help but be amused as he looked at the 2 of them mischievously. "Evidence?" Guan Ziyuan was suddenly at a loss for words. His expression stiffened and he did not know what to say. "Why is there no evidence?" Li Yanji suddenly rolled his eyes and pointed at Lin Yi as he vowed, "There are 2 irrefutable pieces of evidence that are enough to prove that you are a traitor." "Let's hear it." Lin Yi was not anxious at all. The way he looked at Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan was no different from watching a monkey on the street. He wanted to see what kind of tricks this guy could come up with. Chapter 43-38. Qi Wenhan and the rest of the crowd also stared at Li Yanji. If the evidence was truly irrefutable, then Ling Yi could forget about leaving the Equal of Heaven escort agency ever again. The damage he had caused to the agency was more than enough to be repaid with a few lives. "First, Guan Ziyuan and I came back a month ago, but you only came back now. If you weren't involved with the pirates, why didn't you come back with us?" Li Yanji laughed coldly and proudly. Everyone nodded when they heard this. This was indeed quite a suspicious point, and it could also be used as evidence because it could support what they had said before. They had no idea that it wasn't that Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao didn't want to come back with them, but that they couldn't and were trapped in Jinduan City. What else? Lin Yi did not refute and continued to look at Li Yanji with a faint smile. "Secondly, why didn't your junior sister Huang come back with you? It's obvious that she was taken in as a pirate's wife by the pirates, so she can't come back, isn't that so?" At this point, even Li Yanji himself began to admire his quick-wittedness. The evidence he had grasped was simply flawless, as if it was real. Sure enough, after listening to his 2 so-called pieces of evidence, Qi Wenhan and the rest of the people present, who were originally skeptical, now believed at least 70 to 80%. Unless Lin Yi could bring out stronger evidence than this, no matter how extravagant his words were, it would be of no use. Hee, I really couldn't tell that you're actually a talent. Lin Yi wasn't as flustered as everyone thought he would be. Instead, he calmly teased, with your eloquence. To be able to make the dead come alive, to be able to make the crooked straight, rather than wasting one's talent as an escort, he might as well switch to selling insurance. If that didn't work, a matchmaker would do. Anyway, I'm sure you'll earn more than you do now. Brat, let me give you a word of advice. You'd better watch your mouth. Don't think that our escort agency doesn't kill people. Shameless traitors like you deserve to be punished. Li Yinji said angrily. Although he didn't understand what kind of industry selling insurance was, he knew what a matchmaker was. Asking a dignified middle-stage gold core expert like him to be a matchmaker, this brat really didn't use any dirty words when he scolded others. If you have any objections to what the two of them just said, you can raise them in front of everyone. Right now there is no final conclusion. I hope I didn't misjudge. Qi Wenhan frowned slightly. Now that they heard it, Ling Yi was indeed the most suspicious person. At the very least, Li Guan's words and the two pieces of evidence could be said to be logical. It could almost explain all the doubts that everyone had. The only thing that could not be explained was, why did Ling Yi dare to return alone? Young master, the evidence is irrefutable. I don't think he has anything to say. Hee, in the face of irrefutable evidence, what's the use of your glib tongue? Li Yinji sneered proudly. That's right. Ling Yi, hurry up. If you have any evidence that can reverse the verdict, hurry up and say it. Otherwise, if you wait for the fight to start and then claim innocence, it won't be justifiable. Guan Ziyuan, who was at the side, laughed loudly. He didn't believe that Lin Yi had any evidence in his hands at all. This time victory was already in his hands. I have nothing to say. Lin Yi shook his head lightly. Now you finally have nothing to say, right? Hurry up and admit your guilt. Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan became even more complacent. In such a situation, danger could be averted with just a few words from the two of them. After they killed Ling Yi, they must find a restaurant to have a few drinks and celebrate. When Qi Wenhan saw this scene, he couldn't help but frown deeper and deeper. He gave Lin Yi a chance to refute, but in the end Lin Yi had nothing to say. Could it be that he had misjudged him? Lin Yi looked at the crowd and without saying anything, he suddenly turned and walked towards the courtyard outside. Quickly take him down, this brat wants to escape. Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan hurriedly shouted. Since the situation had already developed to this stage, they had to take this opportunity to kill Lin Yi. Otherwise, even if this brat lived for another day, he could still be a variable. To be safe, they had to nip this problem in the bud. Hearing the shouts of the two people, the two guards at the door couldn't help but turn their heads to look at Lin Yi, and then looked at Qi Wenhan, waiting for their young master's orders. Qi Wenhan really didn't think that Lin Yi would have such a reaction, and he couldn't help but hesitate. However, he still waved his hands at the two guards, indicating that there was no need to stop them. After all, the two pieces of evidence that Li Yinji had just presented could be used as evidence to a certain extent, but to say that Lin Yi could be convicted based on this alone was a bit far-fetched. Furthermore, Lin Yi was only an escort in name. If they couldn't really convict him, even if the mission failed, the most the escort agency could do was terminate his contract. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame Qi Wenhan for misjudging him. Even if they mobilized a large number of people to take down Lin Yi, what use would it be? Make him pay? Not to mention the reputation of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, could he even afford the 300,000 spiritual jades that they had to pay to Wei Xiaodong of the Hong Merchant Guild? Or was it better to just beat him up to vent his anger? Apart from making people look down on the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency, what use would that be? However, if Lin Yi just let him walk away without a word of explanation, Qi Wenhan couldn't accept it. Even if it was purely for the sake of convincing the public, he had to do something about it. Forget it, if this fellow takes a step out of the escort agency, then I'll make him stay. Qi Wenhan hesitated for a moment before he finally made his decision. However, he didn't expect that Lin Yi had no intention of leaving the agency at all. After making a trip to the courtyard, he turned around and returned with another person in his hands. Bang! Lin Yi casually threw the unconscious man in black in front of the crowd. What's the meaning of this? Qi Wenhan couldn't help but narrow his eyes as he looked at the man on the ground in bewilderment. Everyone else was also confused and looked at each other. Among the crowd, only Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan were shocked when they saw the man in black's appearance. When they looked at Lin Yi again, their gazes were filled with disbelief. Wasn't this the pirate leader? How did he end up in this kid's hands? Both of them couldn't hide the fear in their eyes. This was really bad. This man in black was a solid witness. In front of him, everything they had fabricated before, including the two so-called pieces of evidence, was nothing more than a fleeting cloud that couldn't withstand a single blow. Once the truth was revealed, the two of them could forget about having a foothold in the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. Once their names became infamous, they wouldn't be able to survive in the entire Wayark territorial waters. Chapter 43-39. How dare you? Why did you bring a bunch of random people into our agency? Are you trying to mess up our Equal of Heaven Escort Agency? Hurry up and throw him out. Li Yinji did not have time to think too much. Before Lin Yi could speak, he rushed forward and pretended to throw the man in black out. At the same time, he used his body to block everyone's sight and was about to make a move secretly. Although it was a little risky, he could not think of a better way at the moment. He had to kill him quickly. Slap. This kind of petty calculation could be seen at a glance. How could Lin Yi let him succeed? Without using any martial arts, he directly raised his hand and slapped Li Yinji away in front of everyone. Li Yinji crashed into a courtyard wall and fell into the dust, unable to get up for a long time. Guan Ziyuan also wanted to make a move, but Lin Yi frightened him with a look. It was like a little lamb being stared at by a hungry wolf. In an instant, his scalp went numb and he did not dare to take another step forward. Both of them were in the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, but the difference in strength was more than 10 times. If he really wanted to kill Lin Yi could kill him with one finger. He had been in Jianghu for many years. Although he did not have extraordinary eyesight, at least he had a little intuition for danger. The others looked at Lin Yi with vigilance. No one expected Lin Yi to suddenly make a move. Moreover, no one expected that this guy, who was in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, could now send Li Yinji flying with one slap without batting an eyelid. However, Qi Wenhan was not too surprised by this. Back when Lin Yi was at the dock, he was an expert at the level of Old Calm. It was not surprising that Li Yinji, who was in the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, was sent flying with one slap. At this moment, he was only curious about the background of the man in black lying on the ground. It seems that you two still recognize him. What now? You want to throw it out? You want to silence me? Didn't the two of you just say that I surrendered to this guy? Now let him personally prove it to everyone, isn't it more convincing? Lin Yi sneered as he kicked the man in black twice, waking him up. Senior, spare my life. Senior, please spare my life. After the black-clothed man woke up, he couldn't care less about the people around him, nor did he dare to run away. The first thing he did was to kowtow to Lin Yi and beg for mercy. Everyone immediately looked at each other. The man in black did not deliberately restrain his aura. They could see that he was clearly an expert at the peak of the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm. Why did he kowtow to Lin Yi? However, Qi Wenhan didn't care about this. He looked at the black-clothed man and turned to look at Lin Yi. Are you saying that this person is the pirate who robbed me? That's right. Lin Yi nodded lightly. He was too lazy to explain anything. In fact, there was no need to explain anything. Qi Wenhan was a smart man. Just now, Li Yinji's reaction of wanting to silence him had already proved the credibility of this person's identity. At the same time, it also proved that what the two of them had said before was nonsense. Speak, what the hell is going on? Qi Wenhan suddenly grabbed Guan Ziyuan's collar with one hand and growled in a low voice with an unfriendly expression. When he realized that he had been played like a fool by his subordinates, it was impossible for him to continue suppressing it. Li Yinji fell into the pile of stones and couldn't get up. He had escaped. At this moment, Guan Ziyuan was left alone. Facing Qi Wenhan's anger alone, he couldn't say a word. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, this guy was so scared that he peed himself. The smell of urine made everyone frown. Qi Wenhan's mouth twitched a few times. He was afraid that this guy would pee on him, so he immediately threw it aside with a look of disgust. Why don't you explain? Why did you rob the goods and how did you know the route we took? Lin Yi kicked the man in black and said calmly, hurry up, I'll only give you one chance. If you can't explain clearly, then don't say anything. With your three brothers as examples, you should know what kind of person I am. Think about how ruthless I am. The man in black trembled. He hadn't seen how his second brother had died, but he had seen clearly what had happened to his third and fourth brothers. If this guy in front of him wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Yes, senior, please don't worry. I won't dare to hide anything. The man in black nodded his head repeatedly, then said to Qi Wenhan and the rest of the crowd, I received news and a map of the route beforehand, so I waited there in advance. I was prepared to rob this ship of goods. According to our previous agreement, we would hand over the goods to the other party and receive a large sum of money. Who is the other party? Qi Wenhan's expression turned cold. The losses caused by this incident were too great, and he had to find the culprit. Otherwise, the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency wouldn't be able to raise its head in front of others. The man in black looked at Lin Yi, then slowly said to the crowd, Hong Merchant Guild, Wei Xiaodong. As soon as these words came out, everyone including Qi Wenhan, Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan who had fallen to the side, couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This answer was hard to believe, but after thinking about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. This was a large transaction worth 300,000 spiritual jades. Most people wouldn't have such insider information, nor would they have such a large appetite. Furthermore, everyone had already determined that someone must have leaked information about this incident. It was just that they had all been suspicious of Lin Yi, and didn't even think about Wei Xiaodong. You're saying that he took back his own goods, and now wants to extort 300,000 spiritual jades from the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency? Qi Wenhan's expression turned extremely ugly. With regards to this unexpected answer, the rest of the people present might have doubted it, but after hearing it, Qi Wenhan believed it without a doubt. The reason was simple. Now that he thought about it, when they were finalizing the details of the contract, Wei Xiaodong's behavior was indeed strange and unusual. At that time in the contract, Wei Xiaodong requested that if anything happened, the escort agency must pay the full price. For this, he didn't even hesitate to specify the value of the goods worth 300,000 spiritual jades. This was something that had never happened in the past. After all, the two agencies had been working together for more than a year or two, and nothing had ever happened. The risk was extremely low and there had never been a time when they failed. Thus, he didn't have to deliberately emphasize this. Aside from this, there was another extremely unusual behavior. Wei Xiaodong insisted on personally planning the route of the escort. According to the rules, only the manager and the person in charge of the escort agency knew the route of the escort. No one else was allowed to know, even if Wei Xiaodong was the employer. However, because of their old friendship and because he had to win over this big client in the future, Qi Wenhan didn't have much vigilance at that time. Chapter 4340. Moreover, the reason that Wei Xiaodong gave at that time was that this batch of goods was a lifesaver for the Fang family manor on Saliva Peng Island, so he had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. It sounded reasonable, so Qi Wenhan didn't think too much about it and didn't ask him to leave. He would never have thought that the source of Wei Xiaodong's abnormal behavior would be this. It was because he wanted to swallow the goods for himself. He wanted to gain something without risking anything. He wanted to use this opportunity to extort a total of 300,000 spiritual jades. What a huge appetite. Yes, that's what happened. The man in black nodded and glanced at Lin Yi timidly. It was too late for regrets in his heart. He thought that cooperating with Wei Xiaodong would be a good business deal. Who knew that such a ferocious god of slaughter would actually be an armed escort? If he had known this earlier, he wouldn't have dared to rob the goods even if he had 10,000 guts. Tell me in detail the situation when you robbed the goods. Qi Wenhan suppressed the anger in his heart and said with a straight face. Rob the goods? Oh, but there's nothing to say. After the four of us boarded the ship, they didn't resist. After all, the difference in strength was so great. If they dared to resist, then only death awaited them. As the man in black spoke, he was secretly suspicious. Although it seemed like this at first glance, with this god of slaughter's strength, even if it was 1 against 4, it would be easy. Why didn't he make a move at that time? Who was the first to surrender at that time? Qi Wenhan asked with a cold face. Well, wasn't it those two guys? The man in black pointed at Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. Everyone's face suddenly changed. Their eyes were full of contempt and disdain as they looked at Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan. These two guys were the first to surrender, and after returning they actually poured dirty water on their companions. They were shameless to this extent. They were really fucking scumbags from head to toe. Don't slander him. This person is not a pirate at all. What he said is also false. Young master, you must not believe him. Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan couldn't care less about their sorry state. They hurriedly rolled and crawled as they cursed. Even at this point they still didn't want to give up. They felt that as long as they insisted that this person was hired by Lin Yi to act, they still had a chance of survival. False? There was no need for Lin Yi to open his mouth. Qi Wenhan himself had already sent the two hopeless idiots flying with a kick each. With a murderous look, he shouted coldly, even now, you two are still speaking for Wei Xiaodong. Can I assume that you are all his accomplices? Ah? No. Young master, we. Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan's faces were bruised and swollen. Their faces were ashen as they stammered, unable to speak. They didn't know that when Wei Xiaodong and Qi Wenhan were discussing, they were even more unaware that Qi Wenhan had already determined that the mastermind behind this incident was Wei Xiaodong without a doubt. At this time they were splashing dirty water on Lin Yi. Not only would it not help the situation, but they would also be considered as Wei Xiaodong's accomplices. Originally it was just a matter of losing their jobs. If they continued to cause trouble, they might even lose their lives. Continue speaking. Qi Wenhan turned to the black-clothed man and said. As for Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan, he didn't even bother to look at them. If these two idiots wanted to recklessly continue to pester him, he didn't mind sending them to hell. This was already taking into account that the two had worked in the escort agency for so long. Even if they didn't contribute much, they still worked hard. Otherwise, Qi Wenhan really wouldn't show them any mercy. Just based on the fact that the two were suspected of colluding with Wei Xiaodong, it wouldn't be too much to beat them to death. After we robbed the escort, we took a detour to the True Segment Sea and left them in the True Segment City. Originally, we wanted to go to the Far Star Sea as planned and deliver the cargo ship to Wei Xiaodong as soon as possible. We didn't expect to encounter a storm halfway, so we had to return to the True Segment City. Then we encountered the Morning Star Academy coming out to select disciples. They immediately put the entire pier under martial law, so we couldn't enter or leave. So we were trapped in the True Segment City. The black-clothed man said helplessly with a depressed expression. If it weren't for these trivial matters, they wouldn't have met Lin Yi again, and naturally wouldn't have ended up like this. Once a person was unlucky, even drinking cold water would be enough to fill the gaps between one's teeth. Far Star Sea? That place is even further away from here than the True Segment Sea. You didn't receive any news of your transaction there. Wei Xiaodong is really careful. Qi Wenhan sneered. If they had carried out the transaction in the luxuriant Arc Sea, no matter how careful they were, it would have been impossible to completely avoid the eyes and ears of the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. It was obvious that Wei Xiaodong had planned this for a long time and was well prepared. In the end, at the True Segment Pier, we were discovered by the senior, and then, the black-clothed man looked at Lin Yi timidly and spread out his hands speechlessly. Then what? Qi Wenhan couldn't help but ask. The others present also had strange expressions on their faces. Then I killed them one by one. He was the only one left and I brought him back. Lin Yi replied with a faint smile. Ah? Qi Wenhan and the others suddenly looked at each other and sized up Lin Yi again. The other party was 4 experts at the peak of the late Golden Core stage, but they had been killed one by one. Moreover, he had even captured the last guy alive. How strong was he? Even an expert at the consummate stage of the Golden Core stage might not be able to do this. He had to be at least a nascent soul stage expert, right? But even Qi Wenhan himself wouldn't believe that Lin Yi was actually a nascent soul stage expert. He had roped in a potential expert on a whim, but he hadn't expected him to be so fierce. This time he had really made a big profit. If it was purely Lin Yi himself who said this, everyone would only think that he was bragging, but the black-clothed man was kneeling in front of them, so they couldn't not believe it. Everyone looked at Lin Yi with eyes full of awe. After I seized the cargo ship, I sent it to Saliva Rock Island's Fong family manor. This is the letter of escort signed by Manor Master Fong Biwu. Please examine it, Brother Qi. Lin Yi took out the letter of escort and handed it to Qi Wenhan in front of everyone. Qi Wenhan took it and glanced at it. After confirming, he suddenly laughed and affectionately held Lin Yi's shoulders with both hands, saying, I'm sorry, Brother Ling. Because of the slanderous words of these two bastards, I almost misunderstood you. I have wronged you just now. I represent the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency and solemnly apologize to you. Brother Qi is too polite. I won't take such a small matter to heart. Lin Yi was slightly stunned, and his eyes couldn't help but show some appreciation. He really hadn't thought that Qi Wenhan would be so straightforward. As the young master of an escort agency, being able to so calmly admit his mistake in front of everyone was a very rare thing. Chapter 43-41. Normally, even if they knew they were in the wrong, they wouldn't lower themselves to apologize for the sake of their pride. This Qi Wenhan was quite the character. Brother Ling is magnanimous, but as the head of the escort agency, I cannot turn a blind eye to such an atrocious incident. Otherwise, I might as well hand over my authority as soon as possible and go home to take care of my children. Qi Wenhan said with a serious expression. Hearing this, everyone's expressions turned cold. Looking at the young master's stance, he was ready to take action. However, this was to be expected. Qi Wenhan had been in charge of the agency for 5 years, and this could be said to be the most serious incident that had ever happened under his command. Not only had they been set up and blackmailed, but the most hateful thing was that the internal escorts had been trying to cover up the truth. If such a terrible incident was not dealt with, then the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would not be far from destruction. Feeling Qi Wenhan's cold gaze, Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan felt as if their hearts had fallen into an ice cellar. Ignoring their cold hands and feet, they begged for mercy. Young master, we were wrong, we really were wrong. We only surrendered because of a moment of fear. We really didn't collude with Wei Xiaodong. Please, young master, be merciful and spare our lives. Li Yinji, Guan Ziyuan, you are both veteran permanent escorts. In terms of seniority, you are even older than me. You were already here before I took over. If it wasn't for this incident, even if you were a little slack in your work, I could only turn a blind eye. After all, even if you didn't make a contribution, you would still have worked hard, Qi Wenhan said calmly. However, the calmer he was, the more afraid Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan became. This was a sign that a storm was coming. On the contrary, if Qi Wenhan were to fly into a rage now, even if he beat them up to vent his anger, he wouldn't be too harsh on them later. No. Young master, Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan still wanted to beg for mercy, but unfortunately, it was too late to say anything at this point. Don't waste your breath begging for mercy. This time, not only did the two of you surrender voluntarily, causing our escort agency to suffer a huge loss, you even inverted the truth and framed your companions, committing such a despicable act of treachery. Do you think I'll spare you two bastards? Qi Wenhan's face flashed with killing intent. Li Guan and the other man were immediately frightened out of their wits. They lost control of their knees and knelt on the ground with a thud. They begged for mercy. Young master, please spare our lives. Young master, please spare my life. Humph, whether or not the two of you can keep your lives is not up to me to decide now. Whether you live or die, I'll leave it all up to Brother Ling to decide. Qi Wenhan then turned his gaze towards Lin Yi, letting Lin Yi, the victim who had been slandered, personally decide. Letting him vent his anger was also a form of apology in disguise. Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan looked at each other and their hearts sank. They were done for. If they allowed Ling Yi to decide their life and death, would they still have a way out of this? Brother Qi, you can deal with it yourself, I have no objections. Lin Yi waved his hand dismissively. To be honest, Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan were just insignificant clowns in his eyes. Whether they lived or died, he couldn't be bothered to care. Moreover, this was Qi Wenhan's territory. The other party handed over the power of life and death to Lin Yi as an apology, and Lin Yi's personality had always been one to respect others tenfold. Since the other party knew how to conduct himself, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Qi Wenhan was stunned for a moment, and then he looked at Lin Yi even more highly. Not only did this person hide his strength, but he was also neither servile nor overbearing when dealing with matters. He was magnanimous, which was rare. If that's the case, then thank you for your understanding, Brother Ling. Qi Wenhan no longer stood on ceremony, and his gaze fell upon the trembling Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan. In a cold voice, he announced, "From today onwards, my Heaven's Equal Escort Agency will fire Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan, and put them on the agency's blacklist. This will be a public announcement and they will be kicked out immediately." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan had committed such a treacherous act, so it was only natural that they would be fired. It was likely that they wouldn't be able to receive even a single cent of the remuneration they had accumulated over the past few days. It was already good enough that they weren't required to pay a sky-high price for their losses, let alone talk about remuneration. However, putting them on the agency's blacklist and making a public announcement was a more serious matter. This meant that their misdeeds would be known by all other escorts, and from then on, no escort agency would be willing to hire them. At least, they wouldn't be able to survive in the field of escorts anymore. Li Yinji and Guan Ziyuan looked at each other. After hearing such a punishment, they weren't shocked, but were instead overjoyed. From their point of view, it was already good enough that they were able to keep their lives. Although it was a pity that they wouldn't be able to work as escorts anymore, they were both Golden Core experts after all, so they wouldn't have to worry about having nowhere to go. Alright, we'll leave now. Seeing that their lives were saved, Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan immediately became much more resolute. After giving Lin Yi a venomous look, they turned around and walked out the door. Lin Yi narrowed his eyes noncommittally, not paying any attention to these two clowns. However, he was a little surprised. Could it be that this Qi Wenhan was really a soft-hearted person? Although such a punishment wasn't out of the question, wasn't it a little too light? The matter didn't end there. Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan bowed as they walked out. Suddenly, Qi Wenhan's cold voice rang out behind them. "Leave? Did I say that you can leave just like that?" As soon as he finished speaking, the guards in front immediately blocked their way. Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan's hearts sank as they turned their heads stiffly to look at Qi Wenhan. Trembling with fear, they asked, "Young master, do you have any other instructions?" What I said just now was just a punishment for you as the head of the escort agency for your inaction as escorts. I haven't even settled the score of the two of you going back on your word and slandering brother Ling Yi," Qi Wenhan said with a cold smile. As it turned out, he wasn't done. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth instantly curled up. Although he didn't think much of Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan, he was still a little unhappy to let them go just like that. However, it seemed that Qi Wenhan didn't intend to let them go just like that. Then what else do you want?" Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan said in fear. "According to the rules of the pugilistic world, there is only one consequence for going back on your word. I won't make things difficult for you, but I won't let you off so easily either," Qi Wenhan said coldly. This time he didn't just want to give Lin Yi a satisfactory answer. More importantly, he wanted to use this opportunity to make an example out of everyone in the escort agency. Chapter 43-42. 3 Knives and 6 Holes? Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan's faces were pale. Their legs gave way and they knelt down again. Even the other escorts around them looked at each other in dismay. The young master was serious this time. "Guards, execute them." Qi Wenhan placed his hands behind his back and ordered coldly. The guards of the escort agency looked at each other and did not dare to delay. They hurriedly ran over and tied Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan to a metal frame in the courtyard outside. During the process, Li Guan and Guan Ziyuan could only let the guards tie them up. They did not dare to move or use their true qi to protect themselves. Although the 3 Knives and 6 Holes were terrifying, with the physique of a golden core expert, they would not die immediately. However, if they resisted and started fighting, they would not be far from death. The so-called 3 Knives and 6 Holes referred to stabbing the body 3 times, and each stab had to be right through, leaving 6 bloody holes. It was a torture second only to suicide. Many sects and forces on the Heavenly Island still used this punishment. As for the Wayark territorial waters, it was a widely accepted rule of Jianghu. 1 stab, 2 stab, 3 stab. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan fainted on the spot, accompanied by the blood-curdling screams of pigs being slaughtered, accompanied by the scalp-numbing sound of the blade piercing into the bones. Although they avoided the absolutely fatal parts such as the heart, the 3 Knives and 6 Holes were still serious injuries. Even though they were experts of the gold core stage, they were no exception. The entire audience was silent. Under the intimidation of such a cruel punishment, no one dared to whisper to each other. Their gazes towards Qi Wenhan were much more respectful and fearful than before. This was the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Lin Yi nodded to himself as he watched. Although this incident had caused great losses, it was not necessarily a bad thing for Qi Wenhan. At least from now on, his control over the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency would be much higher than before. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. "Throw them out." Qi Wenhan waved his hand with a cold expression. The guards immediately dragged the 2 who had fainted from the pain out like dead pigs and threw them onto the streets outside. It attracted the attention of passers-by. The 2 degenerates had been thrown out, but the rest of the crowd still held their breaths as they waited for Qi Wenhan to continue speaking. "Brother Ling, are you interested in coming with me to the Hong Merchant Guild? I must find that old bastard Wei Xiaodong and properly settle this debt." Qi Wenhan said, gnashing his teeth. This time Wei Xiaodong, the old fox, had set a trap for him and foolishly jumped into it. Not only did he have to pay 300,000 spiritual jades, but he had also lost his prestige and the reputation of the entire Heaven's Equal Escort Agency. There was no way he could swallow this debt. Of course. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Not only was he the person involved, but he was also the one who caught the pirate leader as a witness. It was impossible for him not to go for this kind of thing. Moreover, Wei Xiaodong was such a black-hearted person that he treated the hundreds of lives of the Fang family village on Rock Island like grass. Even if he was Hong Zhong's friend, Lin Yi couldn't just ignore him. All right. Qi Wenhan immediately waved his hand and said, all of you, put down what you are doing. Follow me. Yes. Everyone replied in unison. Compared to going to the Hong Merchant Guild to settle the debt with Wei Xiaodong, everything else was already insignificant. Qi Wenhan was a straightforward person who did what he said. He immediately led a group of people to the Hong Merchant Guild. This group of people was aggressive and immediately attracted a large crowd of onlookers. Previously, when the half-dead Li Yanji and Guan Ziyuan were thrown out, it had already caused an uproar. Now the news had spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. Before Qi Wenhan and the rest had even arrived at the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the news had already spread like wildfire. This was exactly what Qi Wenhan wanted. For this kind of matter, the bigger the commotion, the better. At least everyone would know that this matter was not due to the Heaven's Equal Escort Agency's incompetence, but rather the Hong Merchant Guild's Wei Xiaodong. This way they could also push Wei Xiaodong, the mastermind, to the teeth of the storm and ruin his reputation. The group of people arrived at the Hong Merchant Guild in a grandiose manner. When they stood at the entrance, the surrounding customers hurriedly made way for them. They thought that this group of people was here to seek revenge. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the chaotic Wayark territorial waters, and they were afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Everyone in the Hong Merchant Guild acted as if they were facing a formidable enemy. However, the guest officials who were guarding the place were all alarmed. They stood in front of the crowd with a solemn expression. After all this time, Qi Wenhan had not only brought a group of escorts, but also a few original infant stage experts who were guarding the escort agency. If a battle broke out with such a lineup, the Hong Merchant Guild might not be able to handle it with just the few guest officials. There was no need for Qi Wenhan to announce anything. A servant had already run to the backyard and reported to Wei Xiaodong, "Manager, this is bad. The Heaven's Equal Escort Agency is here to cause trouble." What? Wei Xiaodong was stunned when he heard this. When he regained his senses, he was shocked. He could not help but mutter to himself, could it be that the matter has been exposed? That was impossible. Those pirates were all experienced veterans. They would not be caught so easily. Furthermore, Qi Wenhan had just sent over 300,000 spirit jades as compensation yesterday. How could they have turned against him in just one day? Although Wei Xiaodong was suspicious, he did not panic. He quickly regained his composure and calmly instructed the servant, "I understand. Invite Qi Wenhan to the guest hall." "Then, where are the others?" the servant asked with a troubled expression. "Of course we will keep them out. Do you think our Hong Merchant Guild is a place where they can come and cause trouble whenever they want? Hurry up and go." Wei Xiaodong glared at the servant. The servant hurriedly nodded and left. A moment later, Wei Xiaodong saw an enraged Qi Wenhan in the guest hall. However, what surprised him was that the servant did not only bring Qi Wenhan in, but 3 people. Of the 2 people who came in with Qi Wenhan, he had seen Lin Yi once before. He knew that he was one of the escorts who had escorted the goods last time. However, when he saw the other person, his eyes flashed. Why was this guy here instead of going to the distant Star Sea region? However, no matter how flustered he was, Wei Xiaodong did not show it on his face. He only glanced at the man in black as if he had never seen him before. "Shopkeeper, young Master Qi insists on bringing these 2 people in. Honestly speaking, it was already very good of him to be able to persuade so many people outside, but Qi Wenhan insisted on bringing these 2 people in. As a servant, how could he really stop him?" Chapter 43-43. "All right, you can leave now." Wei Xiaodong frowned, then looked at Qi Wenhan with an indifferent expression. He smiled politely and said, "Young Master Qi, what brings you here today? What brings you here?" Seeing Wei Xiaodong's calm expression, Qi Wenhan could not help but curse him for being a sly old fox. He pointed at the pirate leader beside him and snorted. "Manager Wei, do you not know this person?" "Oh? Which hero is this? Is he a new escort hired by your Heaven's Equal Escort Agency?" Wei Xiaodong pretended to be surprised and looked at Qi Wenhan with a confused expression. He spread his hands and said, "Young Master Qi, I have never met this person before. How would I know him? This old fox is still pretending when things have come to this." Qi Wenhan didn't bother wrangling with Wei Xiaodong. He suddenly kicked the pirate boss to the ground and sneered, "Tell this shopkeeper Wei about the dirty things that happened between the 2 of you in front of him." "Manager Wei, save me. Quick, save me." The pirate leader had been obedient before, but this time he suddenly became disobedient. He was not only afraid of Lin Yi and Qi Wenhan, but he was also afraid of Wei Xiaodong. If he told him everything again, even if Lin Yi and Qi Wenhan let him go, Wei Xiaodong would definitely not let him go. They were all big shots who could easily mobilize nascent soul stage fighters. He could not afford to offend any of them. Save me? What a joke. Do I know who you are? You want me to save you for no reason? Wei Xiaodong sneered and didn't even look him in the eye. He curled his lips at Qi Wenhan and said, "Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but young Master Qi, what is the meaning of this? You brought a stranger who popped out of nowhere and barked at my Hong Chamber of Commerce. Are you putting on a show for me?" Wei Xiaodong, you. The pirate leader was speechless. He had no choice but to ask Wei Xiaodong for help. But now, not only did Wei Xiaodong not help him, he had also offended both Lin Yi and Qi Wenhan. This time he really wouldn't even know how he died. Me? Me what? Wei Xiaodong sneered and continued, "Young Master Qi, I had previously entrusted the goods to your Heaven's Equal escort agency. This old man had repeatedly reminded you that these goods were life-saving goods for the Fong family village, yet you still lost them. It was truly heart-wrenching. However, business is business. Since you've already compensated me at the original price, this old man can't say anything more. Besides, the relationship between our two families has always been good. Young Master Qi, who are you trying to put on a show for me by doing this?" Lin Yi stood at the side and watched coldly. Seeing this, he could not help but secretly shake his head. This old fellow's skin was really thick. Although Qi Wenhan wasn't lacking in shrewdness, in front of this cunning old fox, it was likely that he wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Birds of a feather flock together. Putting aside Wei Xiaodong's depraved character, the fact that he was able to gain the approval of someone like Hong Zhong meant that his own ability was absolutely unquestionable. "Shopkeeper Wei. At this point you and I both know the truth. There's no need to continue pretending, right? What's the point of doing this?" Qi Wenhan was not angry. He knew that in front of this old fox, if he couldn't control his anger, it would mean that he had lost. He could only choose to deal with the other party properly. "Know the truth? Haha, young Master Qi, your words are even more baffling. Why don't you tell me, how should this old man know the truth?" Wei Xiaodong was instantly amused. He sat down calmly, making it clear that he wasn't going to listen to him. "If that's the case, then fine. Brother Ling, I can only trouble you to tell our shopkeeper Wei everything about the escort." Qi Wenhan laughed coldly. Lin Yi nodded. He calmly recounted everything from when the escort set off, how the goods were robbed, how he learned the truth from the pirates, and how he managed to snatch the ship back. "How about it? Shopkeeper Wei, what else do you have to say?" Qi Wenhan stared coldly at Wei Xiaodong. He had received elite training from a young age, so he was never one to get angry easily. But now he had been tricked by this old fox. Not only had he lost 300,000 spirit jades, but he had also lost the reputation of the escort agency. He could not swallow this anger no matter what. In fact, at this moment he wanted nothing more than to personally step on this old fox to vent his anger. Unfortunately, reality did not allow it. The other party was the representative of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. No matter how big a mistake he made, it could only be executed by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. If an outsider overstepped his authority, it would be a provocation to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. The consequences would be unthinkable. As the young master of the Equal of Heaven escort agency, Qi Wenhan had to consider the bigger picture. "Ha ha." Wei Xiaodong laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He pointed at Qi Wenhan and said, "Young Master Qi, this old man has always thought that you were a smart man. I didn't expect you to have such a funny talent. Let's not talk about whether or not this guy is a real pirate. Even if he is, don't you think this kind of trick is child's play, young Master Qi?" "Child's play?" Qi Wenhan raised his eyebrows. "Is it not? Who doesn't know how to play such a childish trick? Do you believe that any child on the street can play the same trick?" Wei Xiaodong laughed so hard that he could not catch his breath. "Young Master Qi, we are all adults. There is no need to play this kind of child's play. This old man also knows that this kind of thing happened to your escort agency, and you feel bad about it. But there is no need to put on such a show. Do you think there is any meaning to it? Humph, the witness and the evidence are conclusive. Shopkeeper Wei, do you still think this is child's play?" Qi Wenhan suppressed the anger in his heart and sneered. "In that case, I will report this matter today and let the people outside judge it. What do you think, Shopkeeper Wei? Once this kind of thing was exposed, it would definitely be a huge blow to the Hong Consortium, especially to Wei Xiaodong, the mastermind behind it. Even if this old fox was thick-skinned, once the Hong Ing group of the Hong Consortium found out about this, or even the Hong Consortium's headquarters, he would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Qi Wenhan originally thought that if he said that, even if the other party would not panic so much, at least he would not dare to be so unscrupulous. However, Wei Xiaodong's expression was still that of a sneer, as if he really did not fear a crooked shadow. He did not take his threat seriously at all. Witness? Haha, could it be that young Master Qi is talking about this guy who framed this old man out of nothing? I don't even know where he came from. How can his words be trusted? Do you think this old man will believe him, or will others believe him? Wei Xiaodong shook his head fearlessly and sneered. Moreover, look at his pitiful appearance. It is obvious that he was beaten. Anyone who saw it would know that he confessed under torture. Young Master Qi, how dare you say that he is some kind of witness? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.